Welcome everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us and making the next few hours available to focus on this session. Uh, from the bottom of my heart, all right, I sincerely thank you, all right, that you are making the time and effort to join us to learn. Right, the team has come together to put a very amazing set of demos for you. Right, we've done all the demos live, by the way, but I've encouraged the team to record it because sometimes things do happen. And indeed, we did have some surprises this morning as well. Welcome. This is the second year we're doing the work from home series, if you want. We started in 2020. And of course, this year we have 2021. Okay. And even better than last year we only had the HP and Microsoft support this event. This year we even managed to get hold of Intel. Right, so we're very excited to host the event for our supporters, all right, the HPE, Intel, and Microsoft. So that couple of minutes of a video that we created a couple of days ago hopefully gives you a perspective of where we are. Right, even last year, for example, when we started work from home 2020, we only had a couple of months, all right, to plan it and to execute it. All right, the pandemic, right, the COVID-19 pandemic sneaked up on us very, very surprisingly, and of course, the whole world went into lockdown. Right, we saw the, if you want, if I had a globe, all right, where I can see lights populating on every country, not just at the borders, but throughout the entire hinterland and even the coastal and so forth. You see all the lights start to go out because the lockdown became global. My name's Noel. I want to welcome all of you. I'm going to be your host for this next couple hours. So if I talk too much or I'm getting irritating to your ears and so forth, just mute me. Okay. But it's important to know that the team has come together and put in many, many hours to put together a very exciting set of demos for you, right? The Work from Home 2021 had an aspiration to bring the best quality demos for you, to show you real world, real life situations. But as shared earlier, right, we got most of it recorded so that at least there'll be no surprises on the day itself. As one of my good friends, Cole, was saying that even demo can go wrong with big events with people like Bill Gates, for example, in his keynote launches and so on. So on the top row, we have Gregor from HPE Regional, and then we have Adesh Gupta from the Intel regional team that's going to be speaking. He's coming in live shortly to join us. And of course, we have Patrick. Patrick is a good dear friend, all right, who is now heading the regional team from a cloud hybrid perspective. All right. So because he's going to be actually traveling from Wellington to Auckland as we speak, so he has so kindly done a recording to welcome you and to share a little bit about Azure Hybrid with you. And of course, at the bottom, we have a slew of really good quality speakers, and I consider them probably among the best in this region. All right, from Ray to Linus to Kenny to Sanjay to Ko and even Chua. Right, they're all good friends of mine. All right, and they've come together to support us in this particular event with their demos. Okay.
Hi, Noel. I think you're on mute.
Oh my goodness, I am on mute. So did the audio and all that come through?
Before this slide.
Before this slide, the audio came through.
Yep.
Ah, that means it muted itself. Okay, just give me 1 second, right? Let me just disconnect from the other side. Okay, I'm not sure what muted me. All right. Hi, Adash. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. All right, cool. I'll pass the thing over to you once we finish with Gregor's video recording. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So obviously, you know, like any event, right? Things sometimes can go wrong. So I don't know what happened. I got muted. All right. But this event was, how do you say, conceptualized after one of my major stakeholders reminded me that he really enjoyed last year's event and he wanted a 2021. So we worked hard to think of how we can do it differently. So this year's approach is really very demo centric. So a lot of scenarios are being shown to help you at the end of the day be able to use some of those in your environment. So this is the flow for today if you want. So we have three special host speakers if you want, or guest speakers. All right, we have Gregor of HPE, all right, and we have Adash Gupta of Intel Regional, and then of course we have Patrick Cornell of Microsoft Regional as well. Okay, so and then of course very quickly after that we wanted to show off great capabilities within the HPE service. So thanks to my good friend Linus, he's put in a lot of effort to be able to dissect, if you want, and some of the videos that he's going to show, I think will really thrill you when you see how amazingly, how they say, put together or created some of these service that HPE has. And of course, a good friend of mine, Raymond of Infront Consulting, right, going back to early 2000s when we started to work together, even when I was in Microsoft Malaysia, right? So he's going to show you some stuff on Intune and Autopilot. So these are great services available in the Microsoft Cloud if you want. Of course, right after that, we're going to take you through with some cloud security. So Kenny, right? Kenny is going to take you through that. And then, of course, we're going to have a break. I know that break is Noel Tang style. Actually, there's no break. You just rush the toilet, come back because we got some great cybersecurity stuff that we want to talk about, right? And we have no other than Clement Arol, who is a regional cybersecurity specialist who consults governments in this region, right? As well as does a lot of sessions and training. So he's going to grace us for a few minutes to share a little bit about what we're doing in July for his track. Of course, we have planned for an on-prem security capabilities. Let's see how Sanjay can recover his environment, right? And hopefully that will be able to be shown and shared with you. And of course, right after that, we're going to do a series of hybrid demos. Right, so Kenny's going to come back and share more in that sense. Right. In fact, we have kind of given him a nickname, right? Hybrid Kenny. All right. So you can tell from that nickname what his focus area is. So truly, this being the hybrid IT track, so the scope or the microscope, if you want, is really on Kenny. All right. And of course, right after that, we have several exciting demos around the remote desktop service. Now, many of you who are probably finding yourself working from home, you may struggle with applications that you are normally using in the office, right? So remote desktop services that also gives you the VDI capability will be able to present the applications and the virtual desktop, if you want, back to you wherever you may be, whether you're working from home or you're working from anywhere. Okay, so from there, Troy's going to continue to take you through a whole slew of Azure Stack HCI capabilities, right, which is meticulously built. All right. In fact, last week when I talked to him about the scope, I was kind of worried because I gave him a pile of areas to focus, but I'm so grateful and glad that he's come through with almost all of them. All right. I'm going to not, if you want, steal his thunder. I'm going to let him do what he has created for you. But I've also given him an extra challenge. I said, hey, you know, Windows Server 2022 is just around the corner. Can you do a sneak peek on that? All right. But at the end of the day, all that said and done, all right, one of the major focus for many organizations, especially those who are developing what they call born in the cloud applications, some of our friends who just joined, right, so that they don't disrupt our session, is this area called containers. All right, so many of you probably heard of containers and so forth, and wondering, is this something complicated? Is it difficult to use and so forth? All right, we wanted to give you the assurance that the way Microsoft has done it is actually very straightforward. In fact, I'm going to let Cole show you that, right, in person. Right, so I called it the bonus session because that really is something that is very different from the rest. Now, those of you who are familiar with this creature called the emperor penguins, right? They live exclusively, if you want, in Antarctica, but for a particular reason. Okay, obviously they thrive in the cold, but even so, in the midst and the thickest part of winter, many of them struggle. So I believe even in our own context, as an analogy, many of us may be going through some kind of winter, or we know people are going through some kind of winter. Now, these creatures have this amazing community approach.
Naawana.
Can someone help me mute
From outside.
the participant? Okay, give me a sec. Okay, done. All right. These amazing creatures have a way to work in a community fashion. And I believe that we, although we call ourselves intelligent beings and so forth, I think we have something to learn from these emperor penguins. They do this thing called huddle. All right, they huddle together. Now, I know many of us understand huddles as in just grouping together, but these creatures group together to stay alive. Okay, we need to learn with that, okay, and learn from that as well. Now, these creatures, those on the peripheral, on the edges, will move themselves in, and the ones that in the middle will move themselves out. And they do this for the entire period of time when it gets really, really cold. Now, you can see from the way they are shaped and their body, they are really, really well protected. But despite that, when the temperatures drop into the negative 20, 30,
Noel, we can't hear you again.
thanks for telling me. I don't know why it's muting me from time to time, right? Maybe it's just a bug, all right? Let's put it down to that for now. So if I just rewind myself for the last few seconds. So these creatures have the ability to protect themselves by moving themselves in and out, right? From time to time, right? So in many ways, I see this as an opportunity for HPE, Intel, and Microsoft to rally all of us together, to bring us all together so that we can huddle together like these emperor penguins to protect each other. So as I lead you through this content, hopefully some of you can learn from this content and maybe even rise to the occasion and say, hey, Noel, I want to join you to speak in some of these community sessions and so forth. Okay, so that's one of the exciting things that I think we can learn from this. So last year we had obviously these speakers and more. All right, this was a hybrid IT, but cybersecurity and also a biz IT all merged together into a single event. So we had 3 tracks. All right. So during the break, right, because this was a longer all-day kind of session, unlike today, right, we only have a shorter bit, right? So we even had a fitness instructor, SH, come and join us with 10 minutes of his workout routine. We encourage people who wanted to learn how to stretch themselves and do some workout, join us for that. And of course, we had the cybersecurity speakers. We had a really good list of speakers, and of course, led by no other than a good friend of mine, Clement Naro. Right? And this particular track will happen in July. Okay, so we split up the tracks this year compared to last year. Last year, all 3 tracks happened simultaneously. And we had feedback that people wanted to go from track to track, but they didn't want to miss out. And of course, we also had a Biz IT track. For those of you who don't know, Biz IT track is actually a very good track where you can learn from others through best practices. So we had industry leaders come into this track to share with us their recipe for work from home, their recipe against ransomware, and all those kind of important learnings if you want, right? And that particular track for us this year, we're going to do that in August. Okay, so we split up all three tracks. So those of you who thought that you're going to miss out this year because you joined us last year, we welcome you back. We thank you for that. And I want to take you to our first speaker, all right, none other than Gregor, right? As the profile speaks, he's got many years experience with HPE and Microsoft technology. So he's no stranger in this industry, if you want. So let me take you straight to his session.
Hello, good morning, and welcome back to our HPE Microsoft session, Working from Home 2021. It feels like last week when we delivered the Working from Home 2020, which actually happened about last year, same month. So welcome back. My name is Gregor, and together with the whole team, HPE Microsoft today, we're happy to meet with you again to share more on Working from Home 2021, specifically to share more on helping our customers to build the post-pandemic plan in a hybrid cloud environment. As you know, the pandemic has quickly changed the way everyone works, and we most likely will not be able to go back to the pre-pandemic way of working style in this case. The entire world has been dramatic forced to shift to remote working, for example. This bring will put a whole host of challenges, like technical challenges, connectivity, security, of course, as well as have challenges in terms of culture, on how the organization run and how we all working. A survey of top 500 CEOs, for example, which is mid last year has been done, is already find out and saying, quote, the usual way of working will never be returned. And Gardner also stressed that around half of the employers now seeing remote working as part of their go-forward model. And this is up from less than a third last year. Of course, there's a work that you can just do remotely, but there's a question, how can you ensure maximum safety for work that needs to be done physically co-located? It's becoming quite clear that the winning model in the near future will be a hybrid work. That means having the flexibility to get work done regardless of physical location, because it's better for business continuity, better for employee productivity, as well as better for the longer term effect. Now that all the organization has been looking to use the more technology to fulfill this, and they will need to maintain in the organization and the people productivity. A simple representation of challenges from different perspectives, both from the management or the leader, as well as the employee perspective. The business leader challenge would be how to keep the employee on-site health and safety. Things like a change in the more thorough health screening on-site and contact tracing will be required in most of the organization working place. At the same time, how to accelerate the culture in this kind of work changes to enable seamless digital and physical collaboration, how to the team interact, how the team make decisions, how the team can share to provide a better employee experience. It's going to be changed. How we engage and enable the employees is to support the activity that we need to work and at the same time to have a more mobility. One of the positive way is to reduce the workplace costs because it's less real estate costs we're facing today as we're working more remotely and less on-site. For the employee perspective, we have to adjust in terms of how we can have more knowledge in terms of knowledge management for our function. have more collaboration in the way we schedule the team meeting, how we can share our plan, how we intuitively getting the more feedback from our team, from our customers is going to change, and it will impact how we innovate, for example. At the same time, we also have change in the process, which we also will change the way we empower among our team in the organization. With all of this and the current situation we experience today, let's hear more from our team on how we can help you and your customer in working in the hybrid IT environment together with HPE Server and Microsoft Windows Server. Hope we have good, productive, and informative today, and have a good session with the rest of the team, and look forward to meet you in the next session from HPE and Microsoft. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregor. Thank you so much for his sharing, right? Because he's been what you call tied up in a what you call business review sessions for the region. So I've got him to record this for you. So those of you who get the slides later, you'll be able to tune in again. He has some really valuable words of wisdom, I believe, in how organizations can cope with the current new normal. Because the next speaker we have is none other than Adesh, right? His good friend, and also he's very eager to share, right? So without further ado, all right, I'm going to let him introduce himself, all right, and also for him to share his thoughts around some of the exciting technology that he brings to the table. Right. Over to you, Adesh. Okay, we can see your slides, but you're muted.
Bummer. Sorry.
No worries. It's normal. It's normal. Happened to me too. So.
Yeah, I thought once I start sharing screen, it would automatically come back out of mute. So it does not. Again, thank you for having me here. And thank you to you, HPE, Microsoft, for bringing this amazing workshop together. And what I want to do is, so before I proceed, I hope all of you are keeping safe in this current environment. I know with the MCO in place in Malaysia and some of the other restrictions that we have, it is not easy. It's not easy for us. It's not easy for families, our friends and colleagues, and so on. So stay safe, maintain the health, and be positive. So and I hope at some point in time we get the opportunity to meet you face to face and have a great conversation. So my name is Adesh Gupta. I manage the sales in APJ from an HPE point of view. So all the business that HPE does with Intel in this region, me and my team are responsible for. I'm based in Singapore, just across the border from a Malaysia perspective, and again, we are again in a very similar position like as you are from a pandemic perspective and the restrictions that we have in place here. But before I begin, I just want to say thank you for the partnership that we have been having together with you, our customers, with Microsoft, with HPE, with Noel and his team, for bringing the solutions that we have in place today. And these solutions are meant to address the challenges that we have today, whether it is working from home, identifying more productive, efficient solutions that we can put together, from an infrastructure perspective, from a software perspective, and more importantly, from a productivity standpoint, that we can deliver to the employees working from home. And I think this course of the next few hours is going to be geared towards what is it that we can do together and how we can do together to help and address these challenges with some of the compelling solutions that has been put together in association with HPE, Microsoft, or Noel. We as a company have evolved over a period of time, and our goal, given that as a company we touch a number of areas, whether it is at the edge, the cloud, in AI, or even in the data center, we have created a what we call as our purpose, and we believe that the technology that we have today is to enrich the lives of every person on earth. And probably Intel is the only company in the semiconductor and the industry today that can boldly state that we have unique capabilities at the silicon and the solution level that we bring through a partnership with Microsoft, with HPE, and other ecosystem ISVs that create these compelling solutions that you take and deploy in your enterprise for your employees and for your customers as well. As we look forward into the future, from an Intel point of view, we are looking at making some really bold decisions. And these decisions are critical for taking Intel to the next level of growth and bringing those silicon technologies that we can provide to our customers. We are expanding our capacity significantly by putting in more fabs and putting in more ATMs in US, Europe, and other locations as well. We are also moving into what we call as an IDM 2.0, which is our integrated design manufacturing, to the next level, where we are expanding our services to include foundry services as well, that helps us build products on Intel's manufacturing process. And through that, I think we believe that we have an opportunity to share some of our IP with other organizations and leverage some of the good work that is being done outside of Intel. The third one is our ability to drive generational improvements from a data center processor perspective. And we announced in April a third gen Xeon scalable processor, which is the next generation of a processor and platform technology that we have brought to market. And we believe it's going to, and I'll share some more data on this processor.
Say that. Peter.
Hi. Sorry, can you mute your phone, please, so that it's
Yep.
easy? Thank you. And so we have the third gen Xeon scalable processors that were announced in April, and share more data on that. And finally, when we look at the future architectures that the workloads demand and what the customers are looking for, we are creating a array of technologies that helps us redefine the limits of performance, and not just from a CPU standpoint. We are looking at GPUs, we are looking at accelerators, and in fact, just yesterday we made an announcement, which is our infrastructure processing unit, or IPU, where we will have a range of products to accelerate the data through the network in a smart, intelligent fashion. And so that's at a high level, some of the capabilities that we're putting in place for the next few years to create some compelling products for our customers. When we look at the Xeon scalable processor, the third generation, codenamed Ice Lake, that we announced in April, this is a generational change for Intel. We not only added obviously more cores and more capabilities on a new process technology, but we've also brought in unique differentiation at the processor level. So, for example, we have built-in AI and security solutions, which is again very unique. This is the only x86 processor in the market that has that kind of capability. We have also looked at security solutions, and I'll share with you a slide later on what we have done and how customers have taken advantage of capabilities like software guard extensions. It's a enhancement that we have done on Ice Lake. We have been having that on the Xeon E processor line for some time, but we have enhanced it on Ice Lake. Crypto acceleration as well got added into Ice Lake. We have total memory encryption, a unique capability that helps us improve the security on the memory subsystem. And platform firmware resilience, again, a unique capability that adds more resilience capability at the firmware level for the server infrastructure. I'll share with you more data on that as well. And so looking at the security solutions, we have also added in more scalable, flexible, customizable solutions on Ice Lake. So deep learning boost, it is a capability that helps us accelerate some of the AI workloads. Speed select technology that gives us the ability to create dynamically configurable data centers that helps us move, increase the number of cores and capabilities at the system level as the workload demands. AVX 512 that helps us address some of the really large problems, instructions, and reduce the number of clock cycles that it takes to execute those instructions. And finally, we have One API software, which is a software development platform that our customers can use to create software that runs on all Intel architectures, not just the CPU, but across accelerators, future GPUs, and IPUs as well. And so when you look at the scalable processor, it supports up to 6 TB of memory in conjunction with Optane persistent memory. It has up to 8 channels of memory, again, giving you more capabilities of addressing large chunks of memory. So more memory capacity, more IO lanes, better performance as well when you combine it with Optane persistent memory as well as Optane SSDs. And so what this means is from a processor perspective, you not only have the capabilities on the processor, but you also have got capabilities on the platform that gives you a much higher performance for the applications that run on it. And so when we look at some examples here, and the statement I made earlier where Ice Lake is the only data center CPU with built-in AI acceleration. Again, some examples here. What we did was we compared ourselves with the competition, and we saw that the performance that we have, especially for AI ML workloads, relative to our competition, we had got much better performance. And this is by running the codes on the CPU itself. We're not even running on a separate accelerator or a separate GPU that sits on the PCI bus. This is running on the CPU itself. So huge performance gain in image recognition versus a competing x86 CPU. And when we look at a broader mix of 20 popular AI and ML workloads, up to 30 to 50% performance gain. So what this means is when you look at the software optimizations and you're comparing with some of the frameworks out there. So let's take TensorFlow for deep learning, and we compare the ResNet 50, which is optimized framework codes, and now compared to the default distribution, we get a 10x performance improvement. And so that's why it's extremely important. And the other example is with scikit-learn, where we see 100x performance improvement for machine learning when you're taking the optimized code versus the default distribution. And that's why for developers, our recommendation is please download. And these are all open source. It's available online, and you can download it for free. The optimized codes could be downloaded and made use of. And some examples here below of how customers have been able to take advantage of these optimized codes in their environment. Another key benefit of Ice Lake is its security capabilities that we have added in the platform. For example, we have added in software guard extension. This is built in inside our silicon itself. And so with software guard extensions, we are now able to provide a significant amount of not just data privacy, but security for applications that run in a conclave, in a virtual conclave from external threats or external attacks. And in fact, with Ice Lake, we have been able to improve or increase the conclave size to 1 terabyte. So massive, which means that if you have got a large data set, you can create an enclave of 1 TB and ensure that it runs in a highly secure fashion. In addition to SDX, we have introduced TME as well, which is total memory encryption, which encrypts the entire memory space to protect against physical attacks. And The other one is physical platform firmware resilience. Again, for some of the codes out there, especially malicious codes out there that attack the underlying firmware layer, and especially for DOS kind of attacks. And with platform firmware resilience, we have been able to mitigate the risk of attacks from such kind of malicious code. And some examples of customers, especially in healthcare industry and in the FSI sector, how customers have been able to take advantage of these security capabilities for their enterprise. Another example here, especially with crypto acceleration, very, very important. We didn't have this before, but we have now introduced with Ice Lake new set of instructions and capabilities to parallelly execute encryption functions. What this means is the speed of encryption and decryption improves dramatically. So you basically do not have a penalty that you need to pay in terms of extra clock cycles or wait time on the CPU because of the parallelization that you have implemented with these new instructions. You can obviously, due to this, you get a higher throughput with AVX512, which is now a part of the instruction set on Ice Lake. And for certain workloads, especially encryption intensive workloads for like SSL web servers, or especially in the upcoming 5G microservices or VPN and firewalls, the performance that you derive for encryption and decryption is much higher. So some examples here with Nginx, which is an encrypted web server, you achieve over 4.2x more connections per second. Another example is with IPsec, where you do vector processing. You get up to close to 2x the processes, the packets that are processed per second compared to without crypto acceleration. So these are again capabilities on the processor through a set of new instructions, which our developer community can take advantage of. And just looking at how we have added the capabilities and improved the performance of Azure Stack HCI, for example, through the work with Microsoft and the optimizations that we have done with Microsoft, we have been able to improve the performance by over 100%, so over 2x the performance gain with Ice Lake compared to the previous generation Cascade Lake. This is at the throughput level, but when you look at latency, especially look at read and write latency, massive performance gain. And I'm sure Noel will show you through some of his examples as well and the work that he has done on the benefits that you can derive with Ice Lake in conjunction with other technologies from Intel, such as Optane SSD or Optane persistent memory. So this is a published document. It's available on intel.com. I've given a link here, but there are multiple documents that we have in place in our partnership with Microsoft on how we improve the performance of Azure Stack HCI in particular, and the capabilities that we have been able to take advantage of on the CPU. So in summary, I just want to again, first of all, thank you for giving us the time to come and talk to you. The third gen scalable processor, we believe today is the foundation that we are laying in 2021, and as we move forward into 2022 beyond, we will see more and more capabilities that address the needs that our customers have today. On HPE Gen 10 platforms, Gen 10 Plus, we have got these processors available today, in fact, available worldwide. We also have got our scalable processors, codenamed Cooper Lake, available on Superdome Flex 280 for high-end systems, especially as you go to 8 socket. And so, just to conclude here, we believe that we are just scratching the surface today in terms of addressing some of these challenges. I think with the investments that we are making as a company, with the products that we are creating for our generational roadmap, I believe we have the strength to create the silicon that is required for our customers. And in partnership with HPE, we have today a very strong portfolio of products at the system level and the solution level that we bring to you, our customers, in association with Microsoft. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you, Noel, for giving me the time. I hope this information was useful, and I'll hand it over back to you.
Thank you, Adesh. Thank you. I always love your session. So, not because you're speaking live, but the fact that it's always so valuable to know what's happening and how us in the industry can take advantage of such amazing security capabilities and so forth. The performance bits always thrills me, right? So when I get your service, you'll be the first one to see the benchmark results.
Thank you.
We share with the whole region, all right, as well. Thank you, Adesh. Thank you so much.
Thanks
All right.
again. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Take care. All right. So it's always amazing, right, when we see such great capabilities coming out from industry leaders like Intel and so forth. And I want to, from my bottom of my heart, thank Adesh for gracing us and doing this session. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, right? I think the benchmark is truly spectacular. And in the very near future, I promise we'll be actually doing that live, and we will try our very best to bring it to you, even in a face-to-face event if possible, right? And of course, from a great speaker like Adesh, we have another awesome speaker, right? None other than Patrick, right? So when you get the slides, you can read in more detail about Patrick, but Patrick is truly someone I strongly believe that Kiwi can do. It's not surprising because he used to work for Nike. All right, I'm sure those of you who know Nike's slogan, all right, from the past, but I still feel that it's very real. All right, it's just do it, right? So the can-do spirit, if you want, is very apt to him. All right, and you can see that in his session. Just hold on for a sec. Something is wrong. Let me just start again because for some bizarre reason I can't unmute the. Let me just share my screen again.
Noel, you have to share with the computer sound on.
Yeah, I had it before. The interesting thing is after I came back in, somehow it disappeared. Okay, let's try again. Definitely wouldn't be fun to listen to Patrick talk to himself. Oh, it's muted again.
Hi everyone, Patrick Cannell here. Great to have.
Something is wrong with my system. Every time
Yeah. Noel,
you can?
Yeah.
You can hear? Okay, great.
Have you here for today's session. Thanks so much for your time. Thought I'd go straight to my slides, but thought I'd have a quick visual hello so you can see who I am as I present this session. Again, thanks so much for your time. Looking forward to talking to you about Azure Hybrid today. So hopefully you can see what I'm presenting here. This is a quick introduction of myself. I am the Asia Pacific Microsoft Azure Infrastructure and Hybrid Product Lead. A bit of a mouthful, but one of my main focus areas is around Azure Hybrid. I've been with Microsoft for just over 5.5 years and actually started off in our devices team working with the OEMs such as HPE, Dell, Lenovo to name but a few, and moved into the hybrid or the Azure cloud business about 4 years ago and have been there since. And so come full circle almost to the hybrid journey. So as we talk about hybrid today, I want to give you a bit of a background in terms of how we're thinking about it and why the interest in Azure Hybrid all up. It's nothing new. Microsoft Azure has always been hybrid by design in terms of how we think about delivering the platform, but what we've added is a new portfolio, new offerings, which has made it more compelling as well. Hence why we're talking to you today. I guess when you think about the unprecedented times and what we've been going through globally and what organizations have been experiencing, what we have observed is that those organizations that realize the power of data as a strategic asset are actually the ones that survived and were the most agile because they embedded it within their culture and were able to leverage the power of data to help change and pivot for the way they needed to act as they move forward. And to do that, you really need what we call a digital feedback loop. And this digital feedback loop is the continuous flow of data empowered with the likes of AI so that you can really leverage the insights to help your organization achieve more and help you change the way that maybe you engage with your customers, maybe develop better products and transform those, empower your own people within your organization, and of course, optimize your efficiency and operations in terms of how you work. That's really key that you leverage the power of data to do that. Now, in an industry such as, or a market such as Asia, there are a few things stopping you. And ironically, a lot of the things that are stopping you have become the reasons for a hybrid cloud, multi-cloud strategy. And these are, of course, regulatory and data sovereignty requirements. Many organizations cannot put their data into public cloud for various reasons. There might be latency concerns, and there might be applications that are legacy that they can't modernize and move, or they might be running old licensing constructs where they can't upgrade those to the new licensing portfolios, such as SQL 2019. And of course, there's not necessarily the freedom to use a public cloud as much, and organizations also want to use, when they can use public cloud, they may want to use more than just one public cloud provider to avoid vendor lock-in. And we're seeing quite a tremendous amount of momentum across the globe, but also in APAC in terms of this hybrid and multi-cloud strategy. These are some statistics here from Gartner in terms of what organizations are thinking about around hybrid and multi-cloud. And then when we look at some of the local research here across APAC, we're seeing sort of slightly lower numbers, but still sort of 60+% of organizations considering multi-cloud or hybrid cloud strategies as how they operate going forward. And of course, as an organization, we're seeing a lot of environments evolving and changing, and there'd be thousands of applications. As I mentioned, might be legacy, there might be SaaS, there might be PaaS, across multiple variants of different infrastructure, and of course, across different public cloud providers. Yes, we'd love for it to always be Microsoft Azure, but the reality is it's not always the case, and it's not always going to be always public cloud either. And so we're taking a much more of a holistic approach in terms of how we're approaching our discussions and our engagements with organizations at the moment. And how we think about that is that cloud is a model, it's not a place. And this is about finding the right cloud options for organizations as they work forward. So yes, public cloud we will always believe is best of breed in terms of how we can deliver that for organizations to transform and evolve and leverage the power of that data. But we also know that not everything can go there. So we work on a proviso that cloud is a model, it's a strategy. Let's work with organizations and their corresponding partners to work out what will stay, what will go to hybrid, what might go to public cloud, and what will be left behind. And this might be across various different platforms. And so this enables us to take much more of a holistic and agnostic approach in terms of how we deliver solutions for organizations today. And this is our overall sort of pitch here, Azure Hybrid. So thinking about how can we work with organizations to provide a single view to help them leverage the power of the edge and AI at the edge, for example, modernize their data centers with Azure Stack HCI solutions or Azure Stack Hub or Azure Stack Edge, which I'll talk about later, but also be able to provide that consistency across the entire estate, across that on-premises, that private cloud, that AWS environment, the Google environments and the VMware environments, all through one pane of glass. And so our offering becomes a control plane plus our Azure Stack portfolio together being the best of breed, enabling organizations to innovate anywhere with Azure. And so let's talk about Azure Arc as that first piece, as that single control plane. Azure Arc, I want you to think about it as a window for organizations to be able to look through and be able to manage with the right compliance, governance, and security to have that unified operations across multiple infrastructure estates. One of the biggest challenges organizations have today is they might well be running those different infrastructure estates, such as on-premises private cloud. They might be running Google, they might be running Azure, they might be running edge devices. So how does an IT department manage and govern securely that entire estate with ease? It's very difficult to do because everyone has their own offerings. What we've done with Azure Arc is created that window through Azure to be able to enable organizations to have that simplicity and that governance and that security settings across all their environment with the right policy structures to help them be the most efficient they can be, but also the most secure and remove that element of risk. And so with Azure Arc, this enables organizations to bring Azure capability to any infrastructure wherever it might be sitting. So I've talked about briefly around organizing and governing that estate. How do we manage it? How do we make sure it's consistent? Applying your role-based access controls, your policy settings to make sure that you're actually best of breed and have that best practice running, making sure you've got your cost efficiency and operations running, making sure your VMs are monitored, and so there's no compliance issues around that as well, all while keeping your infrastructure where it is currently, but leveraging the power of Azure through that window, being Azure Arc, to manage it. One of the other key value propositions around Arc is being able to actually deploy and manage Kubernetes applications across multiple environments using Azure DevOps. And this again becomes that single view and that control at scale across multiple estates. And just new to market in terms of our general availability is the ability to be able to run data services anywhere. So obviously I talked about the power of data and leveraging it and what was stopping organizations. Think about organizations that are stuck with data on premises. They can't leverage the power of public cloud and those data insights, and they want to keep their data on premises. So now what we're doing using Azure Arc is enabling organizations to bring, for example, SQL Managed Instance, which is our PaaS capability, through Azure Arc to run on the customer's infrastructure, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. So let's look at that. So whether a customer is running SQL on premises or some of our Linux-based offerings that we work with, you can bring those PaaS capabilities through Azure Arc onto any infrastructure, whether it's Stack HCI or existing hardware today. The best of breed offering for best support and best solution would be Azure Arc plus Stack HCI, and running this solution through Azure Arc onto the Stack HCI solution. Either way, this requires a Kubernetes container to be running on that hardware. In the case of running that on Azure Stack HCI, that would sit into an Azure Kubernetes cluster, and that would be a fully managed end-to-end service. Whereas if you were to run it on, say, Kubernetes DIY or Kubernetes OpenShift, still possible, but it would run on that customer's estate, and therefore the customer or organization would be responsible for that Kubernetes management and construction. So if we look at sort of like an overview of what that looks like all up, starting at the bottom, pick a hardware, whether it's OEM hardware, Azure Stack HCI, which is also going to be OEM hardware, but you want to run the Stack HCI solution on top of that. Could be Google, could be Amazon. Use a Kubernetes of your choice, apply your Arc data controller, run your data services through that, and then connect that to your apps and BI as a result to be able to get those data and insights. The great, amazing thing around this is think about an organization that's running SQL Server 2008 and their end of support. They're paying probably for extended security updates, or they may not be at a risk of cyber threats. But they've looked at that value and what that risk might be. By migrating your SQL 2008 license to SQL Managed Instance, but deploying it via Azure Arc onto the customer's infrastructure, you no longer pay for the extended security updates because SQL Managed Instance is an evergreen solution. So it's always updated with the latest patching and networking and security constructs to be able to help make sure that is secure and best of breed. So that rolls back to SQL 2008, obviously applies to SQL 2012, which will go end of support in about a year and a half. So organizations are thinking about that today in terms of how they could leverage the power of this solution going forward. So a really great value proposition to be able to help organizations leverage the power of data and AI, but keeping that data on the organization's infrastructure where they choose to be. And so this is the business model here, which possibly could have talked to before earlier, but you can see in this sort of middle left here, this is the Arc-enabled data services that runs on the infrastructure. You've got your customer's infrastructure or Stack HCI solution. There's no cost for Arc to be able to turn that on and manage it. It's when you start using the SQL Managed Instance capability, you start being charged for that. And those services are equivalent to exactly what you see in Azure today on the far right. So everything is exactly the same. And then in the middle here, these are the additional capabilities you can add in with Azure Arc as well. So you can apply your security center, your Azure policy settings. You can make sure your backup and site recovery is running as well. So a great all-up offering that takes Azure services and brings that to customers' infrastructure. Also, what's coming through to market is, let's see if I can get rid of this here. It doesn't look like it's going to go away. Oh, there we go. There we go, good stuff. So you can see here that what's also in preview at the moment is being able to bring machine learning in the same concept of what I talked about with Azure Data Services to any infrastructure. So pretty much the same concept, currently in private preview, so you can start testing it. It's obviously free because it's in private preview, but that is in market today for testing. Pretty exciting stuff. Let's go to the next slide. And so from a pricing perspective, how does Arc work? So again, you take the customer's infrastructure. Arc itself is free. It's once you start enabling the services through the likes of SQL Managed Instance or machine learning, which is actually generally available now. Azure SQL Managed Instance is generally available now, but Azure Machine Learning is available later. And then you apply to some of these other Azure services such as Policy Monitor and Defender as well. So that gives you a bit of an insight on the pricing model. If you want to learn more about Azure Arc, you can join the Azure Arc Jumpstart team. That's a free service available via this link down the bottom here. You can watch YouTube videos. There is what's called Azure Arc Sandbox, otherwise known as ArcBox, where you can actually deploy that onto your own subscription and start playing around with it. So really enables you to start leveraging the power of the solution and testing it out. So make sure you jump onto Azure Arc Jumpstart and check out the demos and how you could leverage it more, or talk to your Azure partner. So from a Stack HCI perspective, let's look at some of the infrastructure offerings we have today. So on the far right, you might be familiar with Azure Stack Edge, which is a solution available ordering via the portal. It's a monthly billed fee. You can send it back when you don't want it, and it enables you to run AI and compute at the edge. Great for data insights, for example, for organizations perhaps like an airport that have surveillance camera operations, and they want to leverage the power of AI through that camera to provide better insights. Many more capabilities for it. We've got manufacturing organizations using it as well, but that's a great offering available today. Azure Stack Hub, most of you are probably familiar with, is ideally suited for our disconnected scenarios and for those organizations looking to build cloud-native solutions, but not always be connected to public cloud. And our Azure Stack HCI offering, which went generally available in December last year, is our hyperconverged solution. It's our sort of best of breed hero product, and enables many things and applies for great solutions such as remote branch offices because it enables stretch clustering, and it also applies to high performance workloads, and starts off as a very small 2-node, 8-core offering and expands from there. So as opposed to Stack Hub, which was quite large, this can start at various different form factors, which we'll look at shortly. So hopefully you've heard of hyperconvergence and hyperconverged infrastructure. Ultimately, what it does is basically condenses down your infrastructure from what you see here on the left down to an infrastructure that basically runs software-defined networking and storage. That's a really quick way of summarizing it, which is great for organizations that are looking to reduce their footprint and are also concerned maybe about sustainability, because less footprint means better impact as a positive sense onto the carbon impact they might be making on the environment. So reduce that infrastructure, have less impact. From what to use Azure Stack HCI for, there's quite a few variations of it, and I'll give you some other value propositions around that too. But really, it is around how do you modernize your data center from, say, that legacy infrastructure, leveraging the power of Azure capability, but running it onto on-premises infrastructure, hence with the Azure Stack HCI solution. You can obviously then run intelligent edge solutions such as compute and AI offerings. I've talked about Azure Data Services running through Arc onto Stack HCI. You can do that too. Great for stretch clustering and enable you to have various offices, or maybe you've got multiple factories and you want to connect them all. It's a great way to bring those together. It's best of breed in terms of how you can run SQL onto this environment. So you can run SQL onto a VM on Stack HCI. But as I mentioned before, if you want to modernize and move to that PaaS offering, then you can actually start to bring those Azure services through Kubernetes cluster onto Azure Kubernetes Service onto Stack HCI. And I'll show you what that looks like, because I know that's hard to visualize just me talking about it. So these are the various form factors. Quite a few suppliers out there in market across all the leading OEMs, HPE, Dell, Lenovo, Dataron, and a few others. And it starts off with your sort of tower form factor right up to your sort of larger architecture blade server design. Either way, it can run that stack HCI operating system. And here's an example of the partner ecosystem available today. You can actually go to the, if you just type into Google or Bing or whatever your choice of search engine might be, you can type in the Azure Stack HCI catalog, and it will bring up the offerings of what's available in the market today as a bit of insight. Something you may not be aware of if you're running Windows Server on premises today, particularly with 2008, and you're paying for extended security updates, you could migrate those workloads to Azure Stack HCI and not pay for those extended security updates until they run out. So a great way to think about modernizing that Windows estate, reducing the cost of extended security updates, or improving your security posture by moving that workload to a VM sitting on Azure Stack HCI. So what does Azure Stack HCI cost? It's $10 per core per month, US that is. And you can see this is our perpetual model. It's our operating system in a perpetual sense in a consumption model. And this sits on top of existing hardware that can run software-defined storage and networking. And again, those offerings and from those various suppliers are available in the previous slide that I talked about through that catalog. But you could potentially run this operating system on your existing infrastructure if it meets software-defined storage and networking requirements. So you can start working out to see whether that works. And you can test this today with a link I've got further on. You can start bringing that down. So it becomes a bit more predictable and a lot more simpler to manage going forward than some of our previous licensing constructs as an operating system. So this is a great one slider that gives us a view of our Stack HCI and all that hybrid sort of solution. So down the bottom, you've got your various hardware ecosystem that I talked about. You run the Stack HCI software or operating system on top of that, which then enables you to do all these things on top. So run virtual machines across Windows or Linux environments on that. So anything that runs on a VM could run on this environment in a virtual machine. You can run high performance workloads. You can get different sort of GPU capabilities on the hardware. Again, as long as it runs software-defined storage and networking, you can run the Stack HCI solution on top of that. And then, of course, from this Kubernetes perspective, because you're using a containerized solution with Azure Kubernetes Service, then you can start bringing down Azure Data Services, modernizing your environment, taking your SQL DB and migrating it to that PaaS solution with SQL MI like I talked about before, and getting that insight, but keeping your data where it is and only leveraging the power of Azure from that Azure Arc capability to be able to connect it all. And you're not seeing your data transfer offshore as a result, which is fantastic. I mentioned AI and cognitive services, that's in private preview, and then you could run other containerized solutions on top of that, and then of course connect that to your applications that run on that hardware. For cloud management, the best way to do that, of course, is with Azure Arc and the Azure Portal, which I talked about. If you're looking for more local edge management, then you can still use Windows Admin Center, and of course through Azure Arc or Admin Center, connect Azure Security, Azure Monitor, and land your file and backup site recovery if you can move that to public cloud. So how do we think about the guidance in terms of leveraging the power of hybrid and Microsoft Azure? So what we say today is we want to make sure that we can help organizations transform and modernize their estate and leveraging what they can in terms of migrating to public Azure today. So that might mean a couple of VMs, that might be turning on Azure policy and those security settings. We tend to find a lot of organizations want to leverage our security portfolio because we are a $10 billion security company. Bringing that in as a solution for organizations is a great way for them to understand how they could leverage public cloud. And they might be able to move some things to public cloud, or they might actually be completely stuck there, and that's fine. We can help them out from a hybrid perspective. And so that's when we start to bring in this unified operations with the likes of Azure Arc, enabling those servers and bringing that Azure policy and security settings and compliance to that entire estate, simplify the way to manage that environment. And then from there, we can start looking at helping out modernizing that estate, helping them build cloud native applications, running Azure Data Services anywhere, and then modernizing that data center with the likes of Azure Stack HCI and leveraging the power of Azure Kubernetes Service and bringing those cloud capabilities to on-premises today. So from a Stack HCI perspective, in terms of resources, here's some offerings here. Go to azurestack.com HCI for the product page. You can go to this link here for the white paper on the left. Watch a series of videos, and of course you can evaluate Azure Stack HCI by going to aka.ms/evaluate-HCI. So pretty short and sweet. So check those out. These slides, I'll make these available after the presentation for the team to share, and you can start to sort of understand this product in more detail. And then finally, from an all-up view, if you're thinking about leveraging the power of Azure Hybrid Resources, go to this link here. This will take you to the technical page from Microsoft Ignite that we had a few months ago. You can go to the Azure Jumpstart link there. They've got Azure Arc Sandbox in there, to help you. And of course, you can try Azure Stack today free by downloading that operating system onto existing estate, just as a test. And then you can check out our other hybrid resources as well.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. That was an awesome session. All right. Let me just very quickly switch gear, because I think time's running away so quickly. Right. It's amazing. Right. So I wanted to try to get to some action now. All right. So I'm sure many of you probably know that technology is here to serve us. All right. So I want to make sure that you understand how the Microsoft, HPE, and even Intel technology can come together. So this particular slide, if you want, gives us a way to understand some of the most affordable way we can go into a work from home scenario. So as you can see, there are 7 different areas, right? Users at home working with the Windows client, leveraging technology like Autopilot and as well as Intune, all the way down to number 7 with the HCI solution that Patrick was talking about. So we're going to go through a lot of these through demo scenarios. So without further ado, all right, I want to bring on stage, if it was a physical event, but of course virtually, all right, Raymond has been very patiently waiting online for his time, all right, to talk about Intune and Autopilot. Over to you, Raymond. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Noel. Just want to check that you guys can hear me okay?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah?
Loud and clear.
Okay,
Good.
great.
Can hear.
Okay, awesome. I don't see myself on screen.
You want
Not
to share?
sure whether it's a spotlight issue or anything.
I can see you. I can see you.
We can see you.
Okay,
We can
awesome.
see you. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna just share my screen and need you guys to confirm that you guys see me okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right, awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Noel, for this time, this little time, and I hope that this little time can share with you guys some scenarios that will spark some interest and spark some excitement of what possibly Microsoft and the technology that's available can do. Like what Noel was mentioning, the 7 scenarios that is possible. I wanted to start this session by talking to you about one of those scenarios. And like what Noel mentioned, the scenario is about Intune, right? And just go to the next slide. And the 2 scenarios that I wanted to show to you guys today is about Intune and Autopilot. Now, my name is Raymond, and I work for a company called Infront Consulting, and we primarily deal with a lot of cloud and technology solutions to help improve the lives of organizations throughout the use of Microsoft technologies. So this session is really going to be about what are some of the key scenarios that we can look at with regards to Intune and Autopilot. Now, I'm sure we are all in the real center and the real critical part of this whole pandemic. Some of us, I'm not sure which country you are all connected with, but over here in Malaysia, we've gone into what we call another lockdown. And I just look back, right, at about a year ago when I was having a conversation with a man called Idris Jala, and he painted me this picture that, you know what, Raymond, we are all going to be going into a scenario where the cases will spike, and then we will open again, and then we will plateau a bit, and then cases will spike again, and then we are going through this cycle. And lo and behold, he was actually right. I don't know whether this guy's a visionary or what, but he actually predicted it correctly. But what does that mean for us as organizations? This is a very big question, because I think we have to admit that the whole work from home scenario may be something that we look at as a new norm for all of us to be part of. It may not be a phase anymore. It may not be for us to wait until this whole thing and all vaccinations are done, and then we will all go back to normal. I think work from home introduces a very good efficiency for our teams to operate in. So what does Microsoft Intune help with regards to this scenario? I'm going to talk to you about two major problems here. Now, the first problem is what work from home introduces. And you know what? Everybody's working from home. Everybody's not in the office. So the boss's eyes is not staring at you like laser light and seeing what you do anymore. Everybody has the ability to do whatever they want at their own.
Raymond, we lost you.
Yeah, sorry, I think I got auto muted for some reason. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good. So I was just saying that documents are everywhere. How do we protect access? Nobody's in the office anymore, right? We are allowed to get documents from everywhere. This poses a very big threat for organizations when we talk about document leakage. It is so easy to send documents over, copy documents over, and things like that. So one of the things that Intune introduces is the ability to prevent unauthorized copying of our company information into any device. And when I say any device, I mean also devices which are non-Microsoft. And that's the big question, right? So this is a scenario that I wanted to share with you guys with regards to an iPad. So I have an iPad there, and it's been configured to only allow usage of applications that I approve as an organization. So if you notice, there was a note there, there was a prompt there to say that this application is only allowed by IT. So this example, you can see that I'm trying to copy out a sentence from an email, from my email account, and I wanted to copy it out. And I opened my notes in my iPad, and I try to copy it out because, imagine this is sensitive information. It could be a company account or something. And I wanted to copy it out into my notes, right, in my iPad. And you realize that when I paste it, and I'm just going to pause it for a minute, it says your organization's data cannot be pasted here. Only 10 characters are allowed, right? So what does that mean? It means that with Intune, I'm able to protect data from being leaked out, protect data from being copied out, from information that I have in my company, whether it is a document in my in my file system, in my OneDrive, whether it's document in my Outlook, in my emails, it protects it. And that 10 character limit is something that we configured. So you can do it as a 0 character limit, a 10 character limit, 20 character limit, and it's really up to you, right? So, but what about if it's an application that we approve? So if I move on, and let's say it's copying from an Outlook. Again, you see this prompt to say that your IT administrator is managing this application, right? Now, let's say I want to copy it from my Outlook and into another application that we are using as a company to interact. And one of the applications that we use is Microsoft Teams. So again, I'm going to copy out this text from my Outlook, right? And we're going to go to an application that we use to interact, which is Microsoft Teams. Okay. Right. Sorry, not this one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, so I'm going to copy out from my Outlook. Just do the demo again. So I'm just going to copy this text now. And I'm going to go to I'm going to go to Microsoft Teams. We use Microsoft Teams to collaborate and chat with each other. So in my Microsoft Teams, you notice that if I am talking to my fellow colleagues and I paste it in here, and you'll see that I'm able to. I'm just going to pause that for a minute. And you notice the sentence actually comes out. So the ability to do this managing of devices, managing of applications is all inbuilt within Intune. And let me very quickly show you how easy it is. The configuration does not require any coding. It does not require me to hack the iPad and to hack everything and code everything and put everything in the iPad and, you know, deploy some kind of code and application into the iPad. It is very non-intrusive in the sense that all I need to do is just make sure that the iPad or devices are being managed. And then on the Intune device, I just go to my central console, and then it's a web-based central console, and I just create a policy. And any policy that I create, you notice I will select the user or I will select the group, as you can see it on screen, right? And I can just go ahead and say that, okay, based on this user's name is Mark Twain. I have this thing about Shakespeare and all the old literature. So I'm gonna create a policy for Mark Twain now, right? So based on Mark Twain's policy, I'm gonna limit, or rather, I'm gonna allow Office 365 to be used, and then I can go ahead and create the policies. I'll go to conditions, then I would select what policies will apply, what devices he can connect with, and so on, right? So you can see everything is simply done with a single, we call it a single pane of glass, or I call it the single cloud console. Okay. It's another example here where I set a policy to be able to use a certain device. So based on the policy that I just created for Mark Twain, and I set in a policy that says that Mark Twain, because he's not actually part of the company, he's just a very old guy now because he's lived for too many years. I'm only gonna allow him to use the web browser. Okay, access his email via the web browser. So Mark Twain has gone and tried to configure it on his phone, right? Because he thinks he's really, really part of this world. He says, okay, I'm going to get this new mobile phone and I'm going to go configure my Outlook on my new mobile phone. I've gotten my password. I'm going to key that in, right? You notice that it is all customized, the screens onto our company, right? And then he gets bang. You cannot access this right now. And he's not allowed to access it on his mobile phone. But he goes up to the web console, he opens up his Outlook, and there you go. Mark is able to access his emails via web browser because we have said so. So I'm playing this very evil, I don't want to call it evil. I'm just playing this controller, this policy controller to set, right, whatever that I feel that is necessary, and whoever that has the rights to do so. And with this form of control, I can mitigate risks. And mitigate security risks. Because at the end of the day, right, I think it's very important for us as organizations to really think about, some of these little things that we may feel that is insignificant. But I have unfortunately had conversations with clients that just one little incident that somebody leaked out, unfortunately, some information to a competitor, and that competitor actually stole millions of business from them. And I hear these stories and I just sit there and I says, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it because it is just too late. So, you know what, although some of these things you may find that it's, I just want to say that it is very important to take a look at it. So that is one of the solutions that Intune protects from data leakages, right? And I always say, don't wait till you discover the data loss, because that is the time where it just may be too late. Now, the second thing that I wanted to share with you guys today is one of the things that work from home introduces is that because everybody is not in the office anymore, it is going to be very difficult to support users. Now, some of you may be very familiar with things like a TeamViewer and stuff like that to support users. Well, that is great and good. But what if the user has a problem with his laptop and he needs support to reformat the laptop, or if a new joiner has come and joined the company during the pandemic and we ship a laptop to him and then he needs to start working immediately? Do we send him the CDs and do we send him the USB drive to get him to install the laptop himself? Obviously not, because we are supposed to be IT. IT is supposed to be the guys that deals with all these kind of things, right? So one of the things that Intune introduces is this feature called Autopilot. And what Autopilot does is having the ability to control the installation of a Windows machine automatically or through a series of steps that can be defined by the user. Now, incidentally, Autopilot can be also used for protection purposes. So I can actually trigger Autopilot to wipe a machine out, and the next time it tries to boot up, it gets wiped out immediately. So from a security standpoint, imagine that a laptop is stolen and it contains all the secret information about the company because the guy didn't follow policy and he didn't back up all these documents into the central backup drive. So to prevent this guy, right, we create a policy to wipe out the machine, right, immediately when it gets started up again, you know. So when it gets wiped out, right, so if you look at my screen here, right, so you notice it says, welcome to Infront Consulting, because we love our company, I don't know why. So we want to make sure that the new staff actually remembers the company name. So all he has to do when he starts up his machine is to key in his email address, his company email address, obviously his password, because only he's supposed to know his password. And then the minute he clicks next, the whole installation procedure takes place, right? Automatically. And that's really what Autopilot is meant to be, right? Autopilot is, the word Autopilot means the plane flies by itself. I'll be interested to sit on a plane that flies itself, to be honest. Maybe not yet. but I wouldn't mind a computer being installed by itself, right? Maybe not a plane. But if you look at this, right, the whole entire laptop gets set up, it gets prepared. You notice if I break it down, right, not only does it install, it sets the security policies, it sets whatever policies that we created earlier within Intune. And when it comes up, what do you notice is that even applications gets installed as well. So we don't really need to say, hey, okay, thank you very much, Mr. User, your Windows is installed. Okay, can you now put in the CD and install Microsoft Office? Put in this CD to install something else. Everything gets installed right up to the point where even the person's documents go back into his laptop. So a lot of the documents, a lot of the things that's being preset. So for example, if a user was using a previous laptop and it died on him, right? So, oh my gosh, I have a proposal to sell tomorrow, but I had the documents saved on my desktop, right? So what he would just need to do is he would go to Digital Mall or you go to any IT center, buy a new laptop, do what I just showed you just now, log in with his username and password, and boom, whatever that he had in his desktop, whatever he had in his My Documents, everything will be downloaded back into his machine, and he can go ahead and continue with the proposal. So really, this is what Autopilot does. It allows efficiency in IT, it allows automation, and allows that to make sure that we are spending time on the important stuff, getting our work done, sending the stuff out, growing our businesses if you're a business owner, and not have to worry about time spent on all this unnecessary stuff. So to wrap it up, I wanted to just, thank you for the time. I wanted to just share with you the 3 main things that all of us have to remember with regards to Windows Intune. And number 1 is that Intune really is the availability of protection. Protecting our data, protecting it so that we can place security to look at the most important stuff and make sure that data leakages don't happen. Intune allows scenarios like, we can go and buy a new machine, we can get a new machine, we can bring our own machines into the office and allow the segregation between what is mine and what is the company's. So when we leave or when we go into a scenario where we don't need the company's applications anymore, it can be automatically just wiped out. And lastly, right, Intune allows us to be able to manage everything from a single cloud space. And that is very important, especially for those of you guys here are in IT. Can you imagine the ability to just sit down from a central location and manage everything, every device in your environment, right? All from a single location. And that is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much, Noel, for the time. These are my contact details if anyone wants to keep in touch. You know, I know we have a short time, and I hope that I'm on time, Noel. I'm going to pass it back to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. Great sharing. I think the clarity on the solution is definitely above expectations. All right. I hope all of you benefited from understanding the value of Intune and Autopilot. All right. Thank you again, Raymond, for sharing. All right. And please do connect with him. All right. Over the years, I've worked with so many people. I think he's one of the best partners I've had. All right, this far. Okay. So please. The other aspect that I wanted to quickly go into as well is you heard Patrick, right, talked about Azure HCI as a solution, right? HPE has this set of validated offerings, right? And I know there was a question on the chat window. I have responded to that. So hopefully the person who asked a question gets value out of it. There are some really good solutions that gives you the ability to start switchless, all right? So I'll give that to Linus to talk about very shortly, but very importantly, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3, if you want. First being the switchless configuration for the 2 nodes, right, with the ILO 5 capability, with the Silicon Root of Trust and so forth. And of course, we have Windows Server Datacenter that powers the operating system and the hyperconverged, including even the hypervisor, which is Hyper-V. And don't forget the Windows Admin Center from ease of use perspective, which all of these guys are going to show you lots of shortly. And of course, thirdly, services, deployment, and support from our valued partners, including people like Raymond, Linus, Chua, and so forth. There are a number of them out there. So without further ado, I'm going to get Linus to talk about the hardware part of it, to show you both from a security and scalability perspective. Sorry, we are running a little bit behind time, all right? But nonetheless, I want Linus to take as much time as it needs to really show off the capabilities. Over to you, Linus.
Okay, no, thanks. Okay, let me get started quickly. All right, so going to change. Let me share my screen now. Okay. Hang on, let me get my screen up. Okay, can you see me? Yeah, I think you can see me. Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So good. All right. Okay, a little bit about myself. Thanks, Noel. A little bit about myself. Good morning, everyone. I will skip this today. All right, and let's move on to introduce the hero for today's discussion. All right. Wow, exciting, right? So nice. So don't you see that? So this is the HPE DL380 Gen 10 server. All right. So you like the animation? So this is the highlight of the key feature. Yes, I think DL380 Gen 10 is already not a new server anymore. It has been in the market since 2017. There are many new technology has come on board and all that. So that's why this year, okay, HPE released the Gen 10 Plus servers. So with Gen 10 Plus, you actually get a 3rd generation Intel Xeon Scalable processor support. Okay, so it's also called Ice Lake processor. Also get PCIe Gen 4. That means you have better, higher bandwidth, higher throughput. Okay, and you also support OCP 3.0 networking. Okay, and also tri-model storage system where it supports NVMe, SAS, and SATA in a single controller. Okay, so some selected controllers. Okay, so these are some of the highlight of the new feature in Gen 10 Plus. But today we are going to focus the discussion on how HPE servers in supporting Azure Stack HCI. So therefore, Gen 10, it is still a fully supported model. All right, today we are going to spend time talking about Gen 10 server, knowing that Gen 10 Plus is also available for a similar configuration. Okay, all right. So let's dive down into under the hood, take a look at what make up Azure Stack HCI. All right, and we are going to use a DL380 Gen 10 server as our walkthrough. Okay, so let's look at, this is the top view of Gen 10 server. Okay, DL380. This is the top view. So is if you can see on your on this side. Okay, let me change. It's a left, right. Okay, some people may not be that familiar. All right, sometimes I also get confused, especially nowadays. We have all the screens here. Right, let me stand up. All right, you can see it's on this side. So this is the front bay. So these are all the where the disk is. All right, the air actually come in from this side. This is the fan. All right, so you can see this is a row of fan here. Okay, then it abstracts the air and then it goes through the you can see the two CPU here. All right, the CPU and also the RAM around it, and it go to the back of the server. So this is the front and this is the back. Okay, so we will discuss further in that. Okay, so let's see. Okay, from there, we of course start off from the front bay, hot swap server hard disk bay first. Okay, so this is the front. So you can see it's on this side, the front bay, which is all the removable drives. Okay, there are many configurations. So some of the configuration can fit more hard disks. Like just now you saw in the video, it actually have 2.5-inch drive bay. It will fit more drive. It also has a middle tier storage mounting brackets. Okay, but depending on configuration, some of the configuration you get a rear removable drive slot as well. Okay, but however, these are all configurable. This actually be your cache as well as your capacity storage. So with the backplane of the disk, okay, then it connects to the this blue cable. You can see the blue cable. Okay, from the blue cable it connects to this HBA adapter. HBA is the controller for the storage. So very important for Azure Stack HCI because it's a software stack. So therefore, it's very important you must disable all the hardware read function. So in this case, it will be all fully controlled by software. Must use HBA or RAID card with a pass-through mode. So that must not enable hardware RAID function. So with this, some of the people ask me, if we are using up all the hot swap bay for cache and storage, so where do we install our OS? I think between the servers is very important as cache. You will PCIe to RAID our OS if let's say we disable the RAID controller function by running a HBA mode. So you are right, good question. Okay, so this is what it is. All right, there is a RAID 1 boot drives. Okay, in the PCIe adapter format. There is this adapter come with two M.2 SATA SSD. All right, it configured as RAID 1. All right, this is where you install your Windows Server on the host. Okay, so then the rest of the removable drives You can use it for cache or capacity. So of course, not forgetting our high performance memory. Okay, in this case, this is also another form of storage system. All right, by default, Azure Stack HCI will use persistent Intel obtained persistent memory as cache. If you configure your server with this particular persistent memory as cache, you will yield extremely high IOP. Okay, because this is low latency in the form of RAM. Okay, in the form of RAM drives. Okay, but however, it's plugged into the RAM slot here. But in the Windows Server, once it's configured, okay, it will be detected as a storage system because of the high throughput, high performance. Okay, so that's why the Azure Stack HCI, it will automatically configure as cache. Okay, so we're done with storage and cache, and now we go into the connectivity. So connecting between the servers is very important. A cluster must be able to communicate with each other in order to update the all the latest information about the storage. Okay, because whatever information write on one server in the disk, right, it has to be updated to another node as well, so that during node failure, all right, no data is lost. That is very important. So for this particular configuration, you can actually use either 10 or 25 gig NIC. Okay, in this case, all right, you can see this is the network port. So in the picture, we have two ports here. Okay, this is 25 gig. All right, RDMA enabled NIC, network interface card. Okay, so for our configuration, what I'm going to show you after this, okay, we are using two node switchless. So that means we are connecting this particular network NIC, all right, directly to the NIC of the second node without going through a switch. Okay, this is direct connection. So there are two ways of connecting it. You can use either a DAC cable, all right, or use a fiber cable. In this case, this is the wrong color. All right, it should be a greenish bluish color. All right, which is OM3 or OM4. It will run 25 gigs. Okay, 10 or 25 gig. Okay, even though that cable, you must remember the DAC cable, you have to purchase the correct SKU. Must be the one that support 25 gig if you are configuring your server with 25 gig network storage connection. So of course, if we are on Gen 10 server, we must talk about ILO 5. ILO 5 enable in fact, it is the most secure Windows platform. Okay, because of this silicon root of trust. Okay, it allows you to protect and detect and recover server in case of any attack on the firmware. If the firmware is being compromised, the system has an internal mechanism to validate and found that the signature is being tampered with. So therefore, it will restore a previously stored firmware so that to protect the system data from being compromised. Okay, so of course, if let's say the system detect that it is altered, okay, the system will also shut down itself, all right, for further investigation, because this is extremely important feature, and it is a market leader in terms of security at hardware level and firmware level. Okay. So, okay, let's talk about how do we set it up and connecting the servers. So again, this is a switchless configuration. You can see on this diagram, okay, you can see two servers, one left, one right, and connecting to this, we call it production switch. Okay, it can be 10 gig or 1 gig to all the rest of your network devices, your PC, all right, printer devices, and so on and so forth. Okay. But however, you have to take note on the red color connection. All right, this is the direct network that just now we mentioned is a 25 gig direct connection. So with this connection, you don't need a switch for storage LAN. Okay, So that is a network IP diagram. All right, this is the example. This IP segment must be different from your production LAN network segment. Okay, another diagram to show you at the back. This is how you connect the blue color cable. Okay, so it's 25 gig storage network. On the other side, okay, this is a 1 gig. Okay, if you have a configuration that is running 10 gig, you may be using a 10 gig Cat 6 or Cat 7 cable, or using a fiber 10 gig fiber LC or whichever form factor that you have. Okay, so we're done with the server configuration, the disk, all right, the controller, the disk controller, all right, then following with our RAM, then following with our network connection for our storage system. So all in all, when we look at Azure Stack HCI, we are talking about a storage system that gives high I/O performance. So how do we gauge I/O performance? Microsoft have this tool, is called VM Fleet. I'm going to run through with you how VM Fleet works, okay? And this is our go-to tools in order to benchmark our I/O performance for all the Azure Stack HCI we deploy. Okay, so let's start off with this particular demo. We have this server 1. Okay, in server 1, we have loaded with this script and also the tool VM Fleet. What VM Fleet does is it actually create a set of VMs. Okay, in our case, we generate every node we have 7 VM running. Okay, with 7 VM running, what we do is we will launch this and we let it run. This particular script will create a lot of I/O activity at the VM level. And this is to simulate that this is like a real life scenario. It creates a lot of I/O activity. And we switch over to server 2. On server 2, we actually have this monitoring screen. We call it the watch. All right, you don't need to look at all the figures. You just need to observe the top left corner. So once the VM is warm up, okay, it will start to throw all the I/O activity to the host server on the storage system. And you can see now the I/O figure, the IOPS figure is start to ramp up. From now it's 300 over 1,000. And in a few more seconds, you can see the system already ramped up to about 500 over 1,000. So once it reaches the maximum ability for the set of cluster able to handle, all right, it will hover at the maximum point. So in this case, with 2 nodes, okay, Azure Stack HCI, we are getting 560 plus 1,000 IOP. So if you compare to, let's say, the physical spindle drive, let's say we are using a SAS drive, 15K SAS drive. In order to achieve this, you easily will have to install a 1,000 or more drive in order to achieve 500 over 1,000 IOPS. Of course, nowadays is everything running on SSD. In this case, all the I/O performance is given by the cache SSD. Okay, so with that, this is the understanding of how we actually run the benchmarking tool. If you also at the same time run Windows Admin Center, you can see while we are running this VM Fleet, Windows Admin Center will also capture the data that it is running 500 plus 1,000 IOPS figure as well. Okay, so we are done with 2 nodes. This is how we measure performance in 2 nodes. All right, we can move on to 3 nodes. So you ask, one day when actually the environment have expanded from 2 nodes, you need additional capacity, you need additional performance, or in terms of compute. So you can add on a new nodes. This is how you add new nodes to your existing node, existing cluster. Okay, we continue with the switchless configuration. Just now, between server 1 and server 2, we have one direct connection. With this, 3rd node coming, we will be connecting server 1 to server 3 directly. Then we will connect server 2 to server 3 directly. It forms a mesh network. Down there is a table showing you server 1 to server 2 with one set of IP segment, server 2 connecting to server 3, and so on and so forth, all right, and with its own IP segment. So back to the screen. So after I have all the connection done already, so what do we do next? Okay, so let's look at the video. Okay, back to the screen. All right, if we go back to server 1, as a normal best practice, whichever network port we do not use, we disable them. Since now I'm connecting server 1 to server 3, I will enable the network port as well. So once it's enabled, okay, we switch over to server 2. From server 2, we do the same thing. We enable the additional network port, which is connecting server 2 to server 3. Okay, so this is how we do it. Okay, it's done. So we switch over to server 3 and we take a look at both of the network ports. This is in server 3. Let's take a look at the network port. They are all enabled. See? Okay, so it's ready. So then the next step, what we do is we actually go to failover cluster manager. You can run it from either server 1 or server 2 because they are already a cluster. Okay, so in this case, we are running it from server 1. So from failover cluster manager, select nodes. Then from there, server 1 and server 2 is already there. We click add node. And from add node, okay, we type in the server 3, the host name. Okay, click add. All right, the system detected. Of course, before you do this step, we have to configure the server with the same OS patch level, then add it to the same domain.
Linus, you okay?
Okay. All right, we didn't cut any of the process. Okay, this is as it is. So it is added. So now we actually switch over to Windows Admin Center. You take a look at the number of drives. Now it's 16. We have 8 drives per server. Do a refresh. And now we have 24. So with the third node, additional 8 disk is added to the cluster. So if I sort by server, you can see server 1, server 2, and server 3, all the disks are listed. And it will take some time to adopt all the disks, then all will be added to the pool.
Are you watching Sailor Moon?
Okay, so let's move on. Okay, this is how we add node 3.
Okay.
So from node 3, we want to add the 4th node. How do we do that? Okay, so similar to what we have just now, now we have 4th node, so now we connect another connection. Still switchless, all right, we are still doing switchless. Server 1 to server 4, server 2 to server 4, server 3 to server 4. Very easy. It's the same way we add 5th node as well, okay? When we have the, before we go to 5th node, okay, we explain a little bit about 4 node because just now when we connect 1, 2, 3, we have one NIC with 2 ports. So with 3 nodes, both ports for all 3 servers will be all utilized. So in this case, when you add on the 4th node, you need to add another NIC in order to connect the node 4. All right. So with the additional NIC, you have additional 2 ports. Now you can connect node 4 as well as node 5. So all in all, when you have node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4, node 5, once you have 5 nodes, okay, all in all, you have 10 storage network connection, 10 network segment, storage network segment. Okay, so this is the diagram. All right, this is another view. This is a logical view. This is how it shows you that all 5 nodes are connected in the mesh network. This is illustrating the storage network. Okay, so this is how this is the information that we gather. We actually did the test on our own. All right, we source for 5 servers, we connect them, and we actually run the VM fleet from 1, 2 nodes, 3 nodes, and 4 nodes and 5 nodes. Okay, and we run 0% write ratio, 10%, 20%, and 30%. So this is the figures that we get. So as we add nodes, you can see that actually the IOP figure increase. So not only you added with additional compute, you actually added extra IOP performance as well. So 4th node, you actually get further improvement, and 5th node, even better improvement. So from this diagram, you can see when you scale out, adding more nodes to the cluster, not only you get better resiliency, you also get better performance. Okay, so all this was done about a year ago. This is our own testing. More than happy to share if you like to find out more about this information. Yeah. Okay, so before I hand over, I like to close this by showing you the tear down of DL380 Gen 10. Okay, enjoy the video. Okay, with that, I like to pass the floor back to Noel. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. That was awesome, Linus, as usual. All right, I think your sharing has always amazed, right, everyone, especially with the green screen effect that you continue to wow us with. So that was on the HPE server hardware from a security and even scalability perspective, right? And of course, you saw the performance benchmark and so on. So what I wanted to do was thinking ahead, all right, and to give the audience, right, who've been so patient with us sitting through the session, break, all right. So I know the break was originally what they call scheduled for 12 o'clock. I thought this is a timely, how they say, point, right, to take the break. And obviously, the break is actually meant to be 15 minutes. Those of you who just want to quickly rush to the toilet and come back, we actually have someone who's going to share something, and I need to, of course, make sure that he's okay to share, right, on the cybersecurity portion. Right, can someone check with Clement, please, see whether he's okay to do the sharing, right? If I can have those of you who are thinking of taking a full 15-minute break, come back exactly at 12:10 so that we can get started on the content, right? Instead of 12:15. So we're going to get into a break now, right? And those of you who just want to go to the toilet and come back, right? We have a bit of a sneak peek, if you want, for next month's sharing on cybersecurity. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm trying to reach Clement to get him to get started.
I am ready.
Okay, go for it.
I was trying to give them a little bit extra time to rush and come back for the restrooms. All right, guys. Hey, guys, good afternoon. Right at slot at 12 o'clock. Happy to see all of you here. Happy to be part of Work From Home 2021. Right. Okay, guys. So I'm here to give you a preview of what we are working on for the next month event from a cybersecurity perspective. Okay, let me actually share my screen. I'll show you what all that is coming about, right? So we are building it. So I'm not gonna break the suspense of showing you the VMs and all of that, but I'm actually gonna share with you what we are building and how extensive it is and how interesting it would be on our next month's sharing. Okay, here we go. Let me share my screen and hope you can get it right away. And here we go. I think you're able to see my screen, guys.
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. So in my past sharing, I'm not sure how many of you have heard me sharing in other forums. I'd actually shown how easy it is to create a new PowerShell malware, because okay, Microsoft uses PowerShell for everything, correct? And a lot of system administrators live on PowerShell to do a lot of day-to-day administration jobs and okay, monitoring analysis using PowerShell. So from a cybersecurity perspective, I had shown earlier how in our earlier sessions, but we will do it again next month, how easy it is to create a PowerShell malware and embed it inside your Microsoft Office, whether it's a Word, Excel, PowerPoint kind of a stuff, and how to take over a complete control of the computer, even if it is fully patched and with a normal antivirus. So we're going to bring back that, and we're going to actually throw it into the Azure security stack and see whether Azure picks up or not. So we're going to have the normal enterprise antiviruses out there, McAfee's and the others out there, and throw it into a VM, that the same okay, malware into Azure stack and see what happens on the Azure stack, right? So we have a comparison of what kind of alert that comes up, how we can investigate on it to find more details about it. So that's one thing that we are getting it up for you. But not only a PowerShell, there are all kinds of malwares out there in all shapes and sizes, correct? So we are bringing all kind of latest malwares of different types, and we are also creating an environment to emulate the attack for you in a VM stuff. So there are a lot of emulators out there. I'm also bringing in Mimikatz and the other tools that Microsoft has put in defenses, particularly to block Mimikatz, right? And how it escapes those stuff and how we can actually catch it and control it from a Azure or Microsoft security stack perspective, whether it's Azure Security Center or whether it's an Azure Sentinel. How do we actually get in and find the relevant artifacts and do a quick investigation so we can do an immediate and quick response to contain the attack? So the session that we are working on is how it is created, how easy it is done, and how we can actually pick it up and remove it off. So it's an end-to-end kind of a game that we are going to do next month with us, with all of you. And this is an emulation. Adversary is actually threat actor, the bird, get the bad guys kind of a scenario, the emulation, and the manual red team kind of an incident response that we are going to create. We're also trying to set up some labs. Okay, we are trying. Let's get back on that as a capture the flag kind of a scenario where we emulate a VM on an attack, and you are the attacker. And if you want, you can play with that to see how you can take over that machine and control it. So we're also doing that part of it for the people who are red team. Oh, we can hack and we know a little bit of it. We can play with it and let us play with it and see whether Azure picks it up. So we're also trying to work on it. No guarantee warranty. That's the extreme that we are working on it. If that is not ready by next month, it will be ready in the following weeks after that, and we will reach out to you to give you the links to play with it. Okay, so we are doing that too with some sandbox being thrown in for you to play with. And all of these attacks that you are seeing here, we will map it to the attack navigator. These are the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by hackers, right? What you're seeing, the red color, that's the marking of the SolarWinds attack that even Microsoft was compromised with. That's the different tactics and techniques used by those malware. So whatever malware that we are actually going to drop it for you, we will also give you a TTP for you to understand how the attack works so that it's easier for you to defend, right? So you will learn from end to end of how to see an attack, how to analyze an attack, and how to use the alerts that is being generated in the Azure and the defense layers, and how do we actually automate or speed up the incident response, right? So there's a lot of malwares that's available that we'll be working on. See, all of that are latest ones. You see that? 16.6. What's our date today, boys? 16th. So we're going to actually get a lot of latest malwares of different types, whether it's a Trojan or whether it is a partial or whether it is an IoT or OT. Kind of the Mirai is also all our OT stuff, the Lokis, the ransomwares. So you have a lot of them over here to play with. So we are actually creating a scenario for you that we will run through during our next month's session, and we'll also give you time to play with these malwares in a controlled VM environment and see how the defenses are actually behaving, where we need to be extra careful, and where the defenses will take care. We don't have to worry about it. Where the defenses might need some extra help from us to actually defend the attack. So we're going to cover all of these in our next month's cybersecurity track of Work From Home 2021 together with Noel and our team members. Okay, Kenny has been very helpful, and I'll be getting Kenny, Chua, all of us to share together with us in all of this that we are building up for next month. Thank you, guys. With that, I actually pass it back to Noel.
Thank you, Clement. Thank you. I hope some of you are really excited. I am. Right. I'm just pinging Clement with some dates as well. Right. Because I can't wait to make sure that his time is locked down so that we can we can definitely get him to share those exciting stuff with us. Okay. So that was Clement just giving you a bit of a sneak peek of what's coming in July. Okay, so once we have the dates locked down, please block your time, join us for that. I definitely assure you it's going to be very exciting. As you probably would have already heard from the time Gregor shared, as well as even Dash and even Patrick, for example, and Raymond, what they call Linus, and of course Clement, security is become more and more important than ever before. But more to that point also is the technology need to be fast, reliable, easy, and yet affordable. Okay, those important aspects you will discover through our sharing for the rest of the afternoon if you want. Okay, so let's dive into security. All right, so with security, the good thing with our offering is you have a combination of hybrid, basically means on-premise as well as in Azure. All right, so these are some of the hybrid scenarios that we cover, all right, today. But what we want to do next is actually talk a little bit about the security capabilities in Azure. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Kenny to jump in, all right, to talk a little bit about this very exciting solution called Azure Security Center. Kenny, over to you.
Hi, Noel. Thank you so much. And thank you, Clement, for the introduction of the whole security piece, right? It's so exciting, and I can't wait to work with you on that, to come up with some stuff that yeah, it will be quite awesome, right? So today, let me share my screen. All right, so today I'll be talking a little bit on something we call cloud security with Azure security, right? Okay. Just a little bit about myself. Kenny, I've been a pre-sales consultant for the past 12 years, and I've been very excitedly working with Noel on a lot of new stuff, right, in terms of the hybrid as well as security. All right, so just to dive straight in, today we're just going to talk a little bit about Azure Security Center, right, and even as Raymond as well as Clement has shared a lot about security and how it's very important in this day and age, right? Especially when we're working from home, right? It's no longer, everything is no longer just based out of one headquarters, one HQ, and one location, right? Everyone is working everywhere. And also the same thing with a lot of the workloads, right? No longer that the workloads are all concentrated in one location, right? We need a intelligence, a way to actually manage and have to kind of like a security system that kind of like encompasses on-premise cloud as well as both hybrid cloud, right? So this is where the solution of Azure Security Center comes in, right? It doesn't only protect cloud, it doesn't only protect on-premise. It's meant to do both, right? And even protecting multi-cloud, right? All right. So just a little bit about like 2 minutes about what this security solution is that firstly is Azure Security Center is firstly a cloud security posture management system. All right, it helps you quickly assess and improve the security state of your organization. All right, so it has things like giving you an ability to get a bird's eye view of security posture with something called Azure Skill Score, right? Where it wants to look at your overall environment, whether it's on-premise as well as cloud environment, right? We want to give you a tool to be able to monitor everything and give you a bird's eye view of what is going on in terms of security. All right, and this tool will continuously monitor, protect all your cross-cloud resources, as well as giving you all the recommendations and things like that, right? So it has a lot of features such as secure score, policies, improved automation, and things like that, right? And coupled with that is that it has a protection layer where it comes in, where Azure Defender comes in, where it's designed to protect all the resources such as your VMs, your containers, your storage, your SQL workloads, right? Everything will go through this, right? So Azure Security Center is a posture management, and then Azure Defender is the part where it actually manages and contains, right? Where it does all the detection, it blocks all the advanced malware threats from Linux as well as Windows. It protects cloud native threats, right? So we will be using some of these and in conjunction to work with Clement to actually work with him to see how we can play with the malwares and things like that, right? And then see how Azure Defender as well as Azure Security Center works in conjunction with all these threats, right? Okay, so let me just go straight dive in. Security Center, I won't dive in so much about this. What it does is that it is the key capabilities, as I mentioned, it's a posture management. And what it comes with is Azure Defender, which actually gives you the ability to protect your environment, all right, as well as inventory tools and benchmark tools to actually even help you to do things like compliance and things like that, right, to help you achieve certain compliancy if you're looking for that, right? Unified view of all cloud resources in Azure, on-premise, and even other clouds, right? Then this is where we want to dive in straight, is that Azure Security Center doesn't just protect Azure, doesn't just protect resources that are in Azure. It also protects resources that are in Amazon Web Services, even to Google Cloud Platform, all right? And it's very easy to onboard all these services to Azure Security Center, all right? I'm going to dive into show you easily how we can onboard a certain workload, right? In this case, we will be onboarding an on-premise workload, right? An on-premise workload and how we can bring it to Azure Security Center, all right? So over here, I have an on-premise server here, and it's basically just an on-premise server. And what we're going to do right now is have a tool called Windows Admin Center. If you haven't played with it, do install it and play it as long as it's free and it's great for managing Windows environment, right? It's a free tool that Microsoft released, right? So from here, what we're doing is that we're going to use this tool, Windows Admin Center, and we're going to onboard a certain on-premise server, right? What we have here, Azure Security Center, and what it needs is just an Azure subscription, and it will ask you for Azure workspace name. Even if you don't have one, you can even create one from this right? So Windows Admin Center is designed to be used as easy as possible without much tinkering and without a lot of configuration, right? It wants to make it as easy as possible, and it's designed to be a bridge to the cloud. All right, so what we have here right now is that you ask for something like workspace name, and just basically these two fields, right? And what we're going to do is just click setup, and now we're going to onboard an on-premise server, and now we'll be protected under this whole platform called Azure Security Center. All right, so what do we have here? Right, so very quickly after we have onboarded, we can see that it's been onboarded successfully. All right, but why do we want to do that, right? Why do we want to onboard a certain, especially on-premise server, right? Firstly is that it gives you a few things, right? It gives you recommendations, right? If you have an on-premise server, we want to be able to actually know about what this server is. And once you actually onboard it, an agent will be installed on this server, and they will start to understand the server. Right. Once it be able to understand the server, it was going to do something like give you recommendations, right? And as well as alerts, right? So these are just one-way alert. Once we've connected, you just connect to all the relevant workspace name and things like that. Now we're going to go to the recommendations, right? What are the recommendations that have been given from this Azure Security Center, right? Firstly, it actually managed to scan through the server and find that there are a lot of security configurations that are a bit not too secure, right? Especially if you look into some of the things that we have a lot of critical rules that that we should actually even turn on, right? For example, things such as Windows firewall, it's not even been turned on, right? So it's saying please turn on your firewall for this server. All right, so firstly, it just kind of understands the whole server and it starts to give you meaningful recommendations of your server, all right? Okay, so it's just a first way of just see this as a first way to just give you a security consultant coming to your house and giving you all the little recommendations on how to secure your house. Same thing as this, right? Then after this, then it's going to say that, oh, actually the second thing is your server is not fully updated. Please go and update it, right? So these are some of the recommendations and useful recommendations that you've been given by Azure Security Center, which you would want as to be given on your environment, right? Even on an on-premise server, all right? After which, now we can actually dive into the Security Center, and this is how it looks like, the overview, right, of the Security Center in the Azure portal. We can see things like Secure Score, Azure Defender, insights to what we have here. So first thing is, I think initially I said something about Azure's Security Center being posture management, right? Security posture management, right? To just see. All right, so what we're going to do firstly is that to dive into Secure Score, and what does it do, right? Okay, this is an overview of your whole environment where you look into your security score and kind of like give you an idea of how secure your environment is. And this is not just on your on-premise server. All right, it looks into your cloud environment. It looks into your on-premise. Once you onboarded your servers onto this platform, it gives you all the meaningful recommendations on how you can actually increase the score, therefore by increasing the security of your organization. All right, so it gives you meaningful things like remediate vulnerabilities. Okay, if you do this, you would earn a certain score, and it will even tell you which resource to actually remediate. All right, so that is Secure Score. All right. So secondly is that, as I mentioned just now, the big piece of Azure Security Center is Azure Defender. This is the engine that does all the protection. All right, so therefore, whenever there is a certain attack or a certain malicious things being alerted, it will be coming out here, Azure Defender, and there'll be alerts, right, things like that. So over here, I've just have some test malware to kind of like trigger these alerts, and you can see here that Azure Defender alerts are coming out, and they can show you what is being detected and things like that, right? So that is the file is not malicious, and how do you remove it and things like that. So these are the Azure Defender piece is actually protecting all your, not only your server, it looks into your even your containers, your storage and things like that, right? And the third thing we're going to go into is the regulatory compliance, right? When we want to manage your posture environment, sometimes certain organizations are looking to achieve certain regulatory compliance, such as ISO 27000, PCI DSS 3.2, right? So this kind of thing is that they give you meaningful things to work on, such as install and maintain a firewall, do not use vendors. So it gives you a step-by-step kind of rule to actually work on as a template, right, for your organization to work on, and give you a checklist of sort, right, or what are the things that you need to do, and as an organization, it's much easier for you to get to that, right? So, and last but not least, as we want to go into the inventory, right, where all the resources are, right? Your virtual machines or virtual networks, your on-premise server. This was just onboarded, right? This hybrid server that I onboarded, and I can see all the recommendations, right? And after it's actually onboarded, they will actually run some assessments, right? And it actually told me that I have passed some of these assessments. Monitoring agent, your machine should be restarted, apply system updates, and all this, right? And even as you goes along and learn more about your server or the server, you actually gives more recommendations, right? And yeah, so that is the part where we just kind of like an overview of Azure Security Center. All right. So this is the overview, and then we're going to zoom back into the server itself and see. All right. So this is all about Azure Security Center. Okay. If you have any questions, just ping us and let us know. All right. Over back to you, Noel.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you.
Sure.
I hope all of you enjoyed the preview. All right. Actually, it's probably more than a preview because I think it's quite a decent overview of the solution. And of course, next month we're going to get a much deeper dive into it. Right. So going down the same path as security, obviously that was the cloud aspects of it. But we also know that a big part of our real estate today for IT is still on-premise. So I've invited a good friend of mine, Sanjay, to talk about this aspect of it from a multi-layered security perspective, using a technology that has been available since Windows Server 2016 called shielded virtual machine. Obviously, in 2019, we get an improved version of that, right? More powerful than ever before, all right? And that's it. Over to you, Sanjay. Take it away.
Thanks, Noel. Let me get some sharing going on here.
Mm-hmm.
My screen is okay, Noel?
Awesome.
Okay. Okay. Once again, thanks, Noel and the HybridIT team for giving me the opportunity today to do this sharing on shielded VMs. So it's lunch hour now. I hope you stick with me. So today we'll be talking about using shielded VMs to help protect high value assets. All right. So to get started, because we've been listening to a lot of speakers, I wanted to get your feedback real quick. 2 questions. If you could grab your phone, right, and just help me answer these questions here. You go to menti.com, menti.com, key in that code. And then I'll put a timer out here. I'll just give you a minute. First question is, do you have high value virtual machines deployed in your company data center? So basically, high value denotes domain controllers, mail servers, intranets, databases, critical servers, finance servers. If it's sensitive, critical, or all your servers are high value actually, right? So just let me know, right? So that as we move forward, I have a better idea. There are two questions. Can move on to the next one as well. Second one is, are you using shielded VMs today? I like the answers, Noel. So 43% never heard of it, 50%, 57% no. That's 100%. So 0% yes. Okay.
That's why this session is so important.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Get this later. Okay. So basically, today we know that there are many types of attack vectors. Basically, the usual ones are the attacks that happen on applications and infrastructure. It's interesting that this session is following Clement and Kenny, because whatever Clement said, some of it I will be doing today. And so security, basically, like it says down here, is not a bolt-on. You don't do it after the fact. You should be building security in from the beginning. All right. So these attacks here, compromised privileged accounts, unpatched systems, phishing attacks, and malwares, these are the normal things that we get probably on a daily basis sometimes in some companies. And then there's another part of this whereby we have the virtualization fabric, the infrastructure part, where the guest VMs, so you could be in a hosted tenant kind of situation, or your department is getting virtual VMs from your IT department. So that fabric or that infrastructure also has vulnerabilities, right? That is probably less looked at than the other more popular ones. Okay, and then I think you should also be aware, and I will show you later, it's so easy to just copy a VM without anybody noticing it, because it doesn't get recorded in the event logs and all that, especially if you're a Fabric admin, right? The person who works at a hosting company, for instance, who hosts your virtual machines, he's able to pull off a copy of your VM with no problems. And also, you can't really protect VMs with gates, walls, locks like the physical servers that we used to have, right? And then when we look at the different attacks, and some of these things were mentioned by Clement earlier, the one thing that is common with all these attacks is going to be the administrative privileges. And today's some of the things that I want to demo will be centered around administrative privileges. There may be many different types of attacks, but today we will just focus on the stealing of administrative privilege accounts and so on. All right. So privilege accounts are basically the keys. All right. So if I got your domain admin password, or even the hash, for instance, for the pass the hash attack, I basically have access to your whole environment. Okay. So if you are virtualizing your domain controller today and you are not shielding it, there is an area of concern there. All right. Okay. So nowadays it's easy to just attack the administrators, and then through whatever method, social engineering, or if I bribe you, or I coerce you to hand over your administrator account. So that brings us to shielded VM, because based on the poll earlier, a lot of you are already doing virtualization for sure. But shielded VM could be something that is very one of those things that are least common, right? So in a nutshell, shielded VM is basically a technology to protect VMs from the infrastructure, like malware and so on, right? Things that happen in the infrastructure, and the administrators themselves. Okay, specifically here the Fabric admins. So if we look at this diagram here, when we had the physical server, which was in a computer room, and there was a building with guards and security and all that, normally only the server administrator would gain access to that physical server. Okay, if we look at that extreme down here, because this is a physical machine, there's no such thing as virtualization, right? There's no administrator. Some companies break out these roles into multiple people. Okay, but you could be the one and all with all these roles, right? Which is even more dangerous. Okay, so then after physical machines, we had the virtual machine, and then this is where the problem starts. Where even if we have multiple roles, these different roles have access to that VM, whether it's to the VHD, some have access into the server itself, and so on. All right. Then the way to address this in actuality is by using a shielded VM, because it's available in the Windows Server 2016, 2019 operating systems. Right. It is already there for a long time, but based on the poll just now, we can see that not many people are using it at all. Okay, so this is basically a contrast here that we can see in terms of the various administrators, the human factor, and the vulnerabilities that can happen. Okay, and then later when I give you that demo scenario, then you probably make a story there, and you can see what's happening. Okay, so in order to do shielded VMs, what's going to be required is we have this concept called a guarded fabric. Just think of this as an infrastructure, and then we need the recommendation for production is actually three physical servers, so that you can lock it away. But for labs and demos and all that, the minimum you can start off here obviously is one. Okay. And we should be using a separate Active Directory domain, or what they call a bastion domain for the host guardian service. And because this is the core, it keeps the keys to the fabric. All right. And then you will need your trusted Hyper-V servers. There is a process that needs to be done to get them attested with the host guardian service. So you can have one or more trusted Hyper-V servers, and obviously the shielded virtual machines themselves. And the minimum here is a Gen 2. All right, you need to have a Gen 2 virtual machine. In the virtual machine here, you can either create a template, and they can be born as shielded virtual machines, or we can convert existing virtual machines to become shielded. All right. Okay, and then attestation modes. There are actually three, but the last one here, which is admin trusted AD attestation, is being deprecated in Windows Server, or starting with Windows Server 2019. So the focus is on the TPM trusted attestation, which is hardware based. It's based on the chip. And then another one is based on certificates, which is host key, normally used when we don't have TPM available. Okay. And we have two types of shielding. One is called shielded, and the other one is called encrypted supported. The key difference between these two is that one is more restrictive than the other. All right, both of them will use BitLocker. And later, when I demonstrate to you, then you will see that when we have a shielded VM, certain things that we are used to doing won't be possible anymore. So shielded is the highest level of shielding, and the next one is actually encrypted supported. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this guarded fabric. So basically, like I mentioned, we have the HGS servers running on one side, and then we have the guarded hosts, which are Hyper-V servers, and then we have the shielded virtual machines here. And then looks pretty simple, but there is a complex process that needs to be followed. And then depending on which attestation mode that we are using, we have to set it up accordingly. And this is called a fabric. So every time a user wants to start a VM, actually what happens is that there is a attestation request made against the host guardian service. And if it's okay, if that host is valid, it's able to run that VM, and then it will allow that VM to start. Okay, so just a few facts here, like I mentioned, the host has to be healthy. There is a code integrity process that we have to do for all these Hyper-V hosts. Not any host can just come into the picture. HGS server normally will have our own AD domain and preferably secured physically. The guarded host, we should be using 2016 or 2019 Data Center edition. And then it has to have the TPM 2.0 for the TPM support and UEFI with secure boot enable. Okay, and then obviously it also involves BitLocker for disk encryption. All right, so this is a high-level view of a guarded fabric. And then next, I want to share with you a demo scenario that I will walk through. So let's make some presumptions here. I've got a Hyper-V server, servers here. One is guarded, and then I have a HR domain here, which is my tenant. I've got one domain controller which is unshielded, and one domain controller which is shielded, right? Just to show some contrasting here. And these two virtual machines sit on this Hyper-V servers. I've got a because this is a demo, so I've got a single HGS server in a Bastion domain, a separate AD domain, and also I've got my rogue admin, right, with his own Hyper-V server under his label, right, all ready to go, and he works at the hoster, right, the one that is running the tenants' workloads. Okay, so with that, let me just get into the demo and see, and let's say what happens when we shield a VM. Okay. So I've got multiple screens here. Just bear with me. Oops. So when we shield a VM, there are two things I want to show you first. What's the difference here? We'll have a look at the security properties, and we will have a look at the console access. Okay. So going back to my diagram earlier, let's focus on these two servers over here. Right. This is my hoster environment, and I'm hosting two servers for this company's HR department. Okay. So basically, if normally if you have your virtual machines, you would probably have your connect here. All right. And remember, I said DC1 is unshielded and DC2 is shielded. Okay. So let's have a look at what the difference is here. Firstly, let's look at the settings. Let's look at the security of these machines, right? So you notice that DC1 is a typical virtual machine. And then when we look at the security, it's got secure boot there ticked, but the encryption part and the shielding part is unchecked, right? I hope you can see this clearly. Okay. And then for DC2, if we have a look at the settings, being a shielded machine, you will see that the security here, it says shielded, which is the highest level. And then you will notice that it is ticked. All right. These two checkboxes are ticked. enable trusted platform module, and enable shielding. They are ticked. Okay, so this is the one way to see the difference there. All right, and then for the connection, this is your regular connect from your Hyper-V server. I will be able to see the console. When a virtual machine becomes a shielded machine, what will happen is that the console connection will be disabled. So if I was the hoster, the admin who works at the hoster, I cannot just peer into your VMs, right? So you'll be disabled, and the only way to get into the server will be through remote desktop, right? Or if it's a Linux machine, you can use SSH. All right, so starting from Windows Server 2019, Linux is also supported under shielded VM. Okay, so this is the security property and the console access. All right, now let's move on to my rogue admin just now. So what he has been doing quietly on the side, because he works on shift and at night, he's been stealing the VHDs. All right, so as you know, the VHDs may be sitting on some storage devices that also is accessible by the hoster. All right, so he has seen where's the hard disk located, and basically for these two servers, he has made copies. All right, so he has made copies. I've got one for HR DC1 and HR DC2, and he wants to see what's inside. Right, so he fires up his disk management tool because he's been doing some research on the internet, and he found out that he can mount these VHDs. Okay, so let's try that. All right, so there's an attached VHD here under disk management. Okay, so I'll be browsing. He has already copied it out. So there's under stolen VHD here. Okay, let's see what happens with the normal unshielded domain controller. All right, so he clicks OK. And then we have the disk being attached here. Okay, so looks good. And he moves on to Explorer, for instance. All right, he goes down here, and then the D is over here, and he's able to browse into the various folders. All right, on the server. And later we'll show you. He's interested in this file actually, the ntds.dit, which is the Active Directory database. But basically, pretty much any server that is not shielded is able to browse into their file system and pull files out. Okay, so that is possible with the unshielded VM. All right, so let's detach it first, and now let's try again with the shielded VM, which is my domain controller number 2. I click there, OK. And what he notices is that this partition D now, same thing that we did with the first server, but this one says it's BitLocker encrypted.
No, the screen is not moved as per what Sanja described.
Sanjay? Oh, I think he must have just somehow disconnected from the server.
Yeah, hold on. I got disconnected.
Your shielded VM is too powerful.
Yeah. Somebody has detected I'm doing something illegal, that's why. Okay, so coming back to the Explorer. Hang on. Okay, Explorer. I've got my D drive again, but you notice now the drive has a lock on it. That's the difference here, you see, with a BitLocker drive. And when I double click it, it needs a key. Okay, so this is already going to make it very difficult for me. Right, so this is security for my domain controller. Right, So that's good that I actually have a shielded VM for this. Okay. All right. So let's move on. So we've done that, and I can't go anywhere with this now. Okay. So let me detach this. All right. And then now he wants to try to create a new VM. But as you can imagine that, what do you call this? With the disk being encrypted and all, it will not be possible. Okay, let me boot up my. So remember that Hyper-V server that he has got under the table, right? So he's going to bring it up here now. Okay, so let's say I'm going to try to do an import instead. All right, I'm going to browse. I've already copied it earlier into my rogue Hyper-V server. All right, yeah, I've got it there. Select the folder. All right, and that's DC2, my shielded. Sorry, what happened? Oh, this didn't work. Okay, never mind. Do a new one. Okay, so I'm setting up a VM. Let's say just for simplicity's sake. Okay, so I've got my stolen VM. I create a new VM for it. So I got it there. I'm so happy. I'm going to start it off now. Oh, this one didn't work. So in a shielded VM situation, what we are supposed to be seeing is that there will be a message that says that the key protector cannot be loaded. Right? I tried it once earlier. Maybe that's why this demo didn't work earlier. Didn't work now. Okay. So in terms of protecting the VM, if you with BitLocker, basically that's what's going to happen. You are able to protect your VMs so that things like this, whereby he managed to use everything that he has learned, and then he managed to dump the ds.dit hashes out. All right. And that tool that Clement was talking about, you'll be able to just use the hash. That's why it's important to protect the domain controllers. That's super slow. They will be able to do things like remote desktop and get into your servers and all that. All right, so that's the impact that is that's important here for us to take note. Okay, let me bring that screen back when it comes. Okay, so just to recap here, this is what I showed you earlier. the shielded versus unshielded, or unshielded versus shielded. All right. And then the console connection, once it becomes shielded, which I showed you earlier. And I walked through the mounting of stolen VHDs, and basically creating and importing VHDs that are shielded or BitLocker. It won't work, right? And the rogue admin trick is basically once he has stolen the hash for the administrator account for that domain, all right, he's able to even do a remote desktop without the password. Okay. So that brings me to the end of my session. Noel?
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you.
Okay.
I know you've got a very tough demo, right? So appreciate you putting in the time and effort, right? And whatever you have done, I'm sure the audience appreciates it. Right? So what we wanted to do very quickly is take us back to this aspect of hybrid. So you saw hybrid security, right? Starting with Kenny that talked about Azure Security Center, and you saw Sanjay talk about security from an on-prem perspective. Right. Earlier on, with Patrick's sharing from the Microsoft APAC team, he talked about this technology called Azure Arc. Right. So without further ado, I want to bring Kenny back, right, to talk a little bit about Azure Arc, because I think Azure Arc merits a little bit of a focus, because definitely many of our customers are exploring beyond a single cloud. So with a multi-cloud strategy that Azure Arc supports, I think it's important for us to dig deeper. Over to you, Kenny. Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. Thanks. Hi, guys. I'm back. Thanks for staying with us. And thanks, Sanjay, for the awesome demo. All right. So let me just share. All right. So Patrick just now mentioned something about Azure Arc. And if you have never heard anything about it, I just want to give you a very brief overview of what is Azure Arc, right? The idea of this is that we want to currently, with the whole work from home situation and with everyone working anywhere, and especially resources, right? IT resources are now scattered everywhere, right? No longer is only just one location, right? We could have virtual machines running in different places in different clouds, right? We want to have a platform where I can bring everything together, where you can run your Azure data anywhere. You can extend Azure management across environments, right? We want to make sure that there's a platform that we can actually manage any platform, whether it's hybrid and cloud or as well on premise, or adopt cloud practices, right? How are you going to have a system where actually you can actually have a bird's eye view of all your different resources, as well as we have something called implement Azure Security Anywhere, right? Just now how I showed you about Azure Security Center and how we can actually manage all your environment, right? Just now, the Azure Security Center is all about security, right? But what about manageability? How about policies? How about updates, right? How are you going to make sure that your baseline of all your servers are actually correct so Azure Arc is that set of technologies that actually helps you to manage, right? So it's all about governance, right? So there's a few flavors there under Azure Arc. There's Azure Arc enabled infrastructure. So within itself, it has something called Azure Arc enabled servers, right? We want to manage Windows servers, Linux servers, AWS virtual machine, Google Cloud virtual machine. So whichever, as long as it's running and we can install an agent on it, we can actually onboard it onto this Arc platform. All right. And the same thing goes is that we can actually do the same thing on Azure Arc enabled scale servers and Kubernetes as well. That's upcoming, right? So these are all in previews as well. But the Azure Arc enables is actually servers are actually already available. Right. So what can it do, right? In terms of this, just a nutshell, what can this Azure Arc for servers do? Firstly, it's inventory, right? We want to make sure that we want to inventorize all your servers, Windows, Linux, physical virtual machines, whether it's sitting on private data center or hosted, right? And quite importantly, it's domain agnostic, right? As an admin, sometimes you'll be afraid, oh, some of my servers are not actually joined the domain. Actually, a lot of servers are not to join domain. Can I actually manage it? Yes, you can. All right, we don't have to actually install and make it to join the domain. But once you join, what can you do, right, with this? Firstly, is that you can do governance, available built-in policies. You can manage the servers. You can build security baseline, and you can have a one place to view all the compliance of your IT resources. Thirdly, is that you can actually have role-based access where the people that matters can manage the systems, and those that are not allowed to cannot see things like that. So you can have a place where you can actually manage all this based on the role in their company. All right. And last but not least is that you have one central place to manage at scale. Searchable inventory, right? Especially if you are managing a big environment with cloud VM, with on-premise VM, you want to have a place where you can actually easily search and be able to find, right? The system, the virtual machine, the resource, right? And you can do that through Azure Arc. All right. Without further ado, I just want to just quickly show you how easy it is to actually onboard an on-premise endpoint to Azure Arc. All right. So here you go. All right, so we have something called, as I mentioned just now, we are using something called Windows Admin Center. All right, and we are going to run it to actually connect to set up Azure Arc on this server. All right, and this is actually a server running on premise. All right, so here we go. Set up Azure. You can easily do that. All right, set up Azure. Now we can actually do some discovery of services. But what we're going to do before we actually discover any services, we want to set up Azure Arc. All right, so easily you can see it just requires these two things. Where do you want to place this in? What resource group, right? Okay, for if I don't have an existing resource group, I'm going to create a new one. All right, so easily I just state which resource group I want to name it. I just create a name, and then from there, Azure region, depending on where you are, you just choose your region. All right, this is it. Two things you just need to set up, especially, but you just need a Azure subscription. But apart from that, you already have that, right? These two things you need, and after which you can see that it's setting up Azure up for servers, and you can see that setup of Azure has been successfully set up. All right, you can see that it's been already set up. And what can we do right after we set it up, right? Let's move on to that and see. All right, so once you get there, you can see that it's been connected and you can view this in server. All right, let me just go through the next one. Sorry. All right, so first thing we can do is that after we onboard it, you can do something right out of Windows Admin Center. You can have a link here that can do certain class configuration policy. All right, can use Azure policy to manage this server already, right? Once you have onboarded it, right? So for example, you can query and analyze logs as well. So let's see firstly from the Azure policy perspective, right? What can we do? Okay. All right, so obviously the new server, I have nothing been assigned, but I can just show you what are some of the policy definitions that we can do, right? For example, we can actually have a lot of policies to be enabled. You can audit virtual machines without disaster recovery. You can have Azure backup should be enabled for virtual machines. So you can set policies like that, right? A very common one is that we want to make sure the firewall is turned on, things like that. So you can have Windows machine should meet requirements for Windows firewall properties. All right, so that's very important. So I want to make sure that all my virtual machines have firewalls turned on, right? As well as even password. All right, I want to onboard all my servers, and I want to make sure that you have things like complexity settings. All right, I want to have complex password to be set. If it's not set up, it will not pass the compliance, right? So you can have policies like that once you actually onboard these servers, right? And audit Linux that have accounts without password. Actually, a lot of Linux machines might not be fully protected password. You can actually state that, right? So all this definition and policies can be maintained, right? All right. So apart from policies, is that what are the things that we can do is that you can see here once you get to it is that there are all these capabilities that has been brought onto it from such as update management, logs, monitoring, insight, policies, change tracking, as well as security. Okay, so let me just dive into some of these things, right? For example, update management, you can actually update and manage your updates all from Azure Arc, right? I won't go into that at this point of time, but you can use Azure Update Management to manage the update management of server. Next is that you have logs. You can enable additional monitoring using logs and even looking at the health system of the server, all right? So for example, I can look for something like, say, health, and I can just query. There are a lot of queries that I can actually run through to actually load up and look into the and digest. And once you get that, is that we can run this. You can just click run, and you actually run the query and query that particular server. And you can even give out a nice graph and things like that just to look and see, right? To give you a health view of the server. All right. Next is that we have something called monitoring insights, right? Once we enable it, right, we can actually go down, drill down into the server itself and look into the server itself. Now I'm looking at my particular server, and I can see that I have like ports 5985, 3 servers are connected, connections are connecting to it. I can really drill down deep into this one server, or I can have an overview view of all my particular servers, right? Let's say part 443 is very popular, that's been used, and there are like 58 connections connected to this server. All right, apart from that is that I have things like OS, the address, what is the IP address, and if it's connected to a domain or not, it will just let you know, right? In terms of that. And CPU, physical memory, everything from this portal itself. You don't need to go to the server itself. You can query all this from Azure. All right. So apart from that, you can look into the log events, the VM connections, and the alert security, right? And one more thing is that you can actually even go down to looking at the performance of the server, right? Okay, this is just investigating changes, all right? Right, so now we can actually look into the performance. We click on the performance piece. Is that now it gives you a nice view of your CPU utilization, your available memory, your logical disk IOPS. So gives you really rich, and if you want to dive into investigate certain health of your virtual machines. All right, so this is what the capabilities are. Monitoring insight. Apart from that, it's also policies. You can actually, I already showed you policies. And the last but not least is that you can go down to do security. All right, as I showed you just now, you will be onboarded as part of Azure Arc to actually manage the security of this server itself. All right, so really, just to bring home, this is the few main things, right, or why one should actually onboard on on-premise server, update management, logs, and it gives you all these rich capabilities to manage your on-prem as well as your cloud environment. All right, so this is just about it. I'll hand this over this time back to Noel just to continue on the session. I think there's a lot more exciting demos coming up.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you. Yes, indeed we do. All right, and that's why while you were talking and sharing away, I was actually in the midst of trying to rehash the flow a little bit. Can you guys see my slides? No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
How about now? Yeah? Okay. I think you can, right? So thank you, Kenny, again. Thank you. So we do have a bonus session, but sadly, I think due to the really packed sharing so far from all the different speakers, right, we're going to take the Windows and Linux containers as well as the Windows subsystem for Linux into part of the YouTube sharing from the recording of today's session. Okay, so we're going to put that in as a set of bonus demos for you. All right, thanks, Cole, for going through the extra mile to create those collaterals and so forth, and he will obviously do it live, right, together with myself and so forth, right? But we'll do that later for you, so that when you join us on the YouTube recording, right, you'll be able to see how he walks through the ease of getting Windows and Linux containers, and even combining Linux OS running inside a Windows server. So we'll let Cole show you that later. Now, you saw this earlier where we talked about the Windows autopilot as well as the Intune, all right? Raymond shared that. That was an exciting demo. We also saw Windows Admin Center in action through various demos. Of course, we saw Hyper-V, the underlying capability that even Sanjay himself showed from a shielded VM perspective. We also saw HCI, and that was a major component that that Linus started with. Right? And next, what we want to do is, from a work from home scenario perspective, we actually have a couple of minutes of demos regarding remote desktop services. So I've asked Chua to put in some extra effort there so that I can show you those aspects. All right. And if anything, for those of you who appreciate a bit of architecture, you know that the technology itself is actually very comprehensive, right? Going from the different roles like the gateway role, the broker, the licensing service, virtualization host, and so forth, right? So this is something that will happen beneath the hood, if you want, while Chua shows his demo. But of course, there are so many exciting things, and even 3.5, 4 hours, even the full day probably would not be enough for us to show all of these capabilities. But I want to let you see what Chua has prepared for you, right? Essentially, it's centered around 3 key areas, right? Something that Linus talked about in terms of being able to grow from 2 nodes to 3 nodes to 4 nodes. By the way, the Microsoft supported scenario and configuration is to grow from 2 to 3 to 4, right? We don't support the 5 node switchless yet, but of course, between Linus and I, we are always so eager to try new things. So that's why we tested the 5 node configuration, right? But of course, Chua has also prepared some stuff for you around DR from a stretch cluster, which will take it even further in August when we do the BizIT portion. And the last area, obviously, is how you scale beyond the 16 nodes, right? Because Azure Stack HCI is able to scale from 2 to 16 within a single cluster, but what if you wanted to go beyond 16? So that's where you put multiple clusters together, or like federate them together, or like setting up a cluster of clusters, right? So you can put multiple clusters together. So he's going to show you some aspects of that in his demo. So without further ado, all right, I'll let Chua introduce himself, but he's got a lot of demos. All right, and I appeal to you, if you can, stay a little bit beyond the 1:30 closing so that he can finish off his demo for you. Okay, over to you, Chua. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Linus. Let me share the screen. Before that, I want to apologize because I suffer some internet instability today. So I will turn off the camera later. Hopefully that is okay with you all.
No problem. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you see the screen? Oh, my scale is too slow. Can see, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, okay, that's good. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so I'm Chua. I work as a pre-sales consultant in eGame messaging. Okay, so this is a little bit information about myself. So feel free to join my LinkedIn. So this is about today's demo agenda. Okay, we will have the RDS, VDI, and then the Azure Stack HCI scale up. Okay.
Chua.
Yes.
Chua, the transition
Very bad.
didn't seem to move.
Oh, this is what I worry actually. I try another way. Wait.
Well, I guess the title of our event is very appropriate, right? Work from home. So these are some of the work from home scenarios that people might encounter. All right, the internet connectivity challenges.
Okay, can you still see the screen?
Yeah, you want to exit out of PowerPoint and then reshare it, see whether that brings it back up.
Okay, let me try.
Yeah, looks like the internet is very, yeah, looks like your connection has quite high latency. Try sharing it again.
Okay. Is it okay now? Better?
Yes, I think it came up much faster
Okay.
this time.
So before we start, let's try. So now is in the second slide, second page. Is it? You all see the same?
No, this is the same. This is your main slide.
Oh. Then the demo agenda. This not still start at the first one.
Like your main slide, the first one. Welcome, it says.
Okay, I think. Okay, let me. Okay. Now is the first slide.
Yes.
Okay, is it now we can see the second slide?
Yes.
Okay. Is
Yes.
it smooth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Okay, I think I'm going to skip this one. Let's come to the demo agenda. Okay, these are the 5 topics we will cover today. Okay, so I'm not going to say one by one, but let's go to the demo now. Okay, the first is about the RDS versus the VDI. Okay, let's start. Okay, let's start with the first demo about the RDS. Okay, assume this is the PC, and in this PC, as what we can see, doesn't have any application like Microsoft Word, Excel. So in order to use that, so we need to access to the RDS server. Okay, to connect it, just simply access to the RDS server followed by RD web. Then you log in using your dedicated username. Once you sign in, you can see the apps published. Okay, from here, let's say I click the Microsoft Word, and you will have a downloaded RDP file, and you open it, then you will open the Microsoft Word like you not open in a normal way. Okay, so maybe you think that is a very troublesome to actually every time you want to use, you have to use the web. So the easier way for you is actually you can use the shortcut you download just now. Okay, right click, okay, make it a shortcut to the desktop. Okay, you can even change the icon so that it looks like Microsoft Word. Okay, so you can even rename it to something like MS Word. Okay, now to ease of access, you just need to double click and it will open the Microsoft Word just like normal. Okay, cool, right? So now I try to save the file. When the time you save your file, you have 2 different locations. Okay, one is the C drive of the server side. So another one is the C drive of the local PC. So now let's say I save the file into the server side C drive. Okay, I save it into this folder called server side, C drive server side. Okay, so after save, I go to the local PC C drive. I will not able to see that folder and also the file, of course. Okay, so in order for your local PC to see the file, you need to save the file to the local C drive. So to save into the local C drive, you need to choose this redirected C drive. Okay, now you can see your local PC folder and you save it. And after that, you're able to find the file from the local PC. Okay. Okay, so other than the remote apps, the RDS come with the remote desktop mode as well. So in order for you to use a remote desktop, you need to use this remote desktop connection, key in the RDS server name, then followed by key in your own credential. Okay, you'll be connected to the remote desktop of the RDS server. Okay, from here you can see all the apps installed inside the RDS server. Okay, so example, I open the Microsoft Word and I key in something and save the file. Okay, I save as browse. I go to the C drive, the server side. Okay, I save it into this folder. Now I go to the C drive of the server. I'm able to see the file and include the file I saved just now. Okay, because this is server side. So other than allow one user connect, in fact, it allowed multiple concurrent user access. Okay, so how many user you can access is very depends on how many license of the RDS you purchase. Okay, in the example here, I log in as user 2. Okay, so at the same time, I will log in another session. It's called user 3. Okay, I key in the user 3 credential. So as what you can see, I will check what's the server name of the RDS server I log in. I key this command hostname. So this is RDS01. So if I switch to the user 2 and I check also the server name, I found that they are the same server. So this is about the RDS session-based remote desktop control. Okay, now we will go switch to the next. It's about the VDI. Okay, let's have a look.
Chua, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just thinking maybe for the interest of time, right, we will insert this portion on the VDI bit into the video that we'll publish on YouTube. So maybe what you can do is just continue with your other demos first, right, so that we don't overrun too much. Is that okay?
Okay, can.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Now, okay, let me I will do something like okay, sweet.
That's the beauty of recording all your demos.
I will do something like this. You need. I think very hard. Okay. Unit. This is another demo. Okay. And then I will scale up to the 3 unit, and then after scale up, I will make the storage pool the volume from the 2-way mirror to the 3-way mirror.
Okay. That's
After
great.
done with the 3 nodes scaling up, I will add on the 4th node, and then change the volume to the mirror accelerator parity volume. Okay, let's go. Okay, this is about the demo. Now
It's
I'm at
scalability demo.
cluster 01. Okay, so what you can see, this is the cluster, and we have two just like HCI server. Okay, and we have one virtual machine. Okay, and volume we have actually 2 volume. Okay, but the main one is 4.01. Okay, and it's running 2-way mirror. Okay, now before we start, let's see the frequency. We need to do this job. Okay, and all these jobs can be done by the Windows Admin Center. Okay, for your information, this is the adjusted HCI H2 and it's running OS. Okay, so in order to have the to use the GUI configure, you need to use the Windows Admin Center. Now we join the domain. Okay, the first job, so you see join the domain. So we can use this method to join domain. What you can see, it could be new to you, and it's, in fact, it's very cool using this Windows Admin Center. Okay, so after join the domain, we're not going to restart first. And next, we're going to do the next task is to install the component. Okay, So these are the required components. Okay, and also we can use the Windows Admin Center to achieve that. How to do that? Go to the roles and features. Okay, I will fast forward in the subsequent in this part because I don't want to waste time. See, the job is about to choose all those roles and features and install. Okay, I will reboot the system after the installation done. While waiting, I go to the Windows update to perform the Windows update for the third node before we actually start. Okay, as what you can see, this is the way using Windows Admin Center to apply the Windows update. Okay, the last is about to assign an IP address and also rename the network adapter. Okay, so the first adapter we will IP, but the second one don't have. So I'm going to assign it now. So this is the adapter for the storage replication. Okay, so I key in the storage network IP. Okay, after done, I go back and see. Yeah, I can see the IP, but we still need to rename the adapter. But in order to rename, I cannot use any features here, but I only do using PowerShell. So now I'm using the Windows Admin Center's PowerShell to rename. Okay, I prepared the script. Let's copy the script. Paste it. Okay, after done, that's what you can see. The network adapter rename already. I like this feature very much, in fact, in the PowerShell in the Windows Admin Center. Okay, that's what we can see now. All the updates done already and restarted, and now we are ready to go to add a third node. Okay, now we go to the servers, inventory. That's what you can see now. It's only 2 nodes. I'm going to add the third node. I click this add button, and then key in the third node server's name, and we just search it. Okay, it's not valid. Maybe. Okay. I have to key in the full name. Okay, cannot found this time. Okay, now adding. So the process is very straightforward. You just need to add. Okay, after that, you will actually appear already. And now it's joining. So you need to be patient and wait for a while. And now turn to the green. And now what you can see is up already. Okay, now your third node actually joined to the cluster already. Okay, now we see whether the storage pool, the capacity increase or not. That's what you can see right now is 792 GB and need to refresh. And after that, a while, you can see that increasing. And you will see all the 3 nodes, the hard disk actually join. Okay. Next, we are about to create a new volume for the 3-way. We go to the volume, create a new volume. This volume is called volume 2, and you can see that the residency will have the choice of the 3. Okay, key in the volume size, and I will enable debug to the type category. Click great. Okay, great. Okay, done. 3-way network is there. Okay, is it everything completed? Not yet. So we still need to move the whatever in the volume 01 2-way mirror to the new volume. So right now I go to the virtual machine. From here, I move. Okay. So this part I will fast forward a little bit. So because this is about the VM migration and storage migration. Okay. So just need to point all the storage to the volume 02. So after that, click and move.
Nice, very easy to do.
Okay, successfully. So if we double check, if I click this manage, move again, and you will see that the destination of the storage is changed to the volume 02. Okay.
Awesome.
this done. Okay, we have actually successfully created the three-way mirror, the third node. But the last is to delete the previous created volume with the two-way mirror. Okay, deleted. So now we are ready for the fourth node. So the prerequisite the task I will fast forward. Okay, this is about create the roles and then rename the adapter and the IP job like I showed you just now. Okay. So about Windows update as well. Okay, once done, I will need to restart. So as what you can see, I have successfully restarted. Now go
This
to
is the
the
fourth node.
cluster. Okay, by choosing this the cluster name. So I go to the server. I'm ready to add a fourth node. Go to the inventory, and what you can see now, I have 3 nodes. I just take the CS server. Now I'm going to add the fourth. Okay, again, key in the server name. Okay, add it. Okay, add. Now is the in the progress adding the nodes to the cluster, and this time it takes faster. Okay, so all the four nodes up, and again we go to check the pool. It's 1.16. You need to refresh and wait. Okay. Okay, now become 1.55 EP. And if you go to the just the HCI, the card, the Windows Admin Center console, you can see that all the days entry is right. So now we're going to add a new volume. Okay, since the volume 01 deleted, I will use bracket. And now we have the option to create as a mirror accelerated parity. And we have 3 options in this mirror accelerated parity. I choose the first one, 90% parity, 10% effect. The size is 100 dB. And the estimated footprint is what you can see is usually lower. Okay, and you will change according to the parity percentage you choose. Okay, so I will choose 90% parity at the end. And enable digit. We will data type as Hyper-V. So after that, create. Okay, done. The volume 01 with the mirror accelerated parity created. Okay, next we're going to move the VM, the storage from the volume 02 back to 01. Okay. Click the VM, choose move, select the storage path, choose the volume 01. Okay, now start to move. So once successfully moved, we go back and double check, is it the location change? Again, click manage, click move, and choose the storage. Then you'll see that, oh, yeah, it's back to the change to the volume 01. And now it's good to go to delete the volume 02, which is 3-way. Okay.
That was very good.
This is the entire process of scaling the adjusted HCI from the 2 node to the 4 node. Okay, hope you like it. Okay, next is about the adjusted HCI storage cluster. Before we start, let's understand the entire topology. So we have the 2 sides. One, your first left side is the Malaysia side. The right is the Australia side. And each side we have a 1 domain controller.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
1 domain controller. And yes, we have the adjusted HCI
Yep.
cluster.
Do you want to just
Yes.
pause it for a sec? I'm just thinking maybe what we'll do is, for interest of time, can you jump into the 2022 the sneak peek?
Okay, sure, no problem.
Yeah, and then just wrap up there, and then because we have all this captured, so we can share it on the YouTube, all right, and then they be able to watch it and so forth, right? That's the beauty of it, because we got delayed a little bit earlier on. Okay. Yep. Great. Thank you.
Okay. So how we can do the installation, but it's almost the same. So I will fast forward. Okay. So that's what you can see. So the look and feel is almost the same as the previous version of Windows Server 2019. So once you have set up, now we verify it. Okay. So this is the Windows Server 2022 data center evaluation, and the version is 21H2. Okay, 21H2 means that it's actually built on the June of the year 2021. And Microsoft Edge by default is already installed into this Windows Server 2022 as a default browser. Okay, and if we click Start button, what you can see, the look and feel a bit different. They have changed most of the icon stuff. Okay, so we click this Windows Security, and what we can see, it changes this is the new feature, protection history, which is previously we don't have. And if we click in device security, you can see that we have a new feature called secure boot, and also we have this standard hardware security, but it's not supported due to I'm using a VM. You will need to have the physical server supported TPM, then you will see that something different. And now we go to the address that has HCI and we put it here on the 20. Okay, and we click on the virtual machine. Okay, I will show you the new feature which is called activity root. Okay, click on setting. Okay, this is the new feature which you can apply from the Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition. Okay, if we click on the create a new rule for the activity. Okay, these are the field which you can actually configure. Okay. So other than that, what else we have changed? If we go to the settings, okay, click on the storage space and tools. Okay, you can see that this storage repair speed. Okay, and you can see some information about this feature, and you can choose the speed according to your need. Okay, and this is something very good. Okay, which previously you don't have. And another one is the default provisioning type. Previously, you don't have the option to change to fixed and fixed. Previous one is the make it default for you is the fixed. Okay. So this is but a sneak peek for the Windows Server 2022. We still have more and more coming soon. Okay, and do follow us for our activity and stay tuned. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chua. Thank you. Thank you so much for
Okay.
part of your sharing.
Okay.
Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we wanted to do was basically take us to the end, just to summarize, all right, with Chua's sharing. We actually had so much planned. We should have just done a special segment probably just for your bit. Just to give you a perspective of how our solution with Azure HCI compares from a cost perspective with some of the competitors like Nutanix, for example. So you can see that in the center, we have the dollar signs around the different components, all right? And of course, with Nutanix, we have a lot more. So obviously, it's not surprising that our solution is a lot more affordable. But ultimately, don't take my word for it. Go talk to your vendors, go talk to your partners and your distributors and check it out for yourself, right? It's not surprising why we are illustrating this part, because we know that in the work from home with COVID-19, many organizations are trying to find cost savings, right? So to summarize, you saw various scenarios that we talked about from a work from home scenarios. And then of course, we also talked about the hybrid platform, especially around security. And last but not least, we also talked about the power of the HCI solution from being simple, right, and the capabilities that is wrapped around Windows Admin Center. I believe that will help you get that solution into your in a simpler, more effective way at an affordable rate as well. Can someone mute that for me, please? All right, and also you saw a very quick sneak peek of 2022. Between Troy and myself, we've been thinking about how to elaborate further, but of course, with the amount of time we have, we may do with whatever we could. Okay, so just to leave you with more, you can pick up. Since you're working from home, you might have a bit more time to learn. There is a very good Azure HCI foundation learning that you can do that only takes a few hours. Okay, I urge you to invest time in it because I think the quality of the training is second to none. None. Okay, so from the basics on to even from a planning deployment perspective, right? Even from a integration into hybrid with Azure Arc and so forth. And of course, last but not least, a special thank you to our special guests, Gregor, Adesh, and Patrick. And of course, all our subject matter expert speakers, right? Sadly, we didn't have enough time for Ko to jump in, but we will insert all those components into the YouTube offline video that you will get a link to, all right, soon enough. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you and have a wonderful, blessed rest of the day. Thank you for joining. Take care. God bless you. Bye-bye.